in charge of a board meeting. It's the annual organization meeting that occurs in December of each year to establish the slate of officers, the calendar for the board meeting schedule for the next calendar year. And so indulge me over these next few items on the agenda, and then I'll turn it back to the board. So may we have roll call, please, Ms. Cornell?
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Present.
Mrs. Flores,
Here.
Mrs. Cordero,
Here.
Mr. Lara.
Here. Thank you. So at this time, I would ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Hollinshead, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
All right. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rock and roll.
Thank you. And so the first item on the organization meeting agenda is the election of officers. And so the first office is that of board president, which for the past year has been Mrs. Cordero. Thank you, Mrs. Cordero, for your service to the board and community. At this time, I would take nomination for the position of president of the Santa Maria Bonita School District Board for the 2022 calendar year.
I will nominate Mr. Lara.
I'll second.
I believe that would close nominations.
It'd be roll call right there.
So with a nomination by Ms. Cordero and a second by Mr. Hollinshead, where we have roll call, please.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Lara.
Thank you.
At this point, I will take nominations for the position of vice president, which Mr. Lara has served the last year. Thank you, Mr. Lara, for your service as vice president.
I'll nominate Mrs. Flores.
I'll second that.
Can I third?
You may. So with a third, I will close nominations with a motion of Mr. Hollinshead and a second Mrs. Cordero for Mrs. Flores to serve as vice president. Have roll call, please.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations, Vita.
Thank you.
And then finally, for the position of clerk of the board, which Ms. Flores has served for the past year, I would take nominations for that position for the 2022 year.
I'll nominate Mr. Valencia.
I'll second that.
I'll third.
Then with three, I will close nominations. So,
And Luke, just as a clarifying question, is the order typically stays the same, or is John ever the clerk next in the process, then followed by myself?
it's you were nominated, you've been seconded, so we'll put it to a vote.
Gotcha.
Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Valencia. So at this time in a normal meeting, we would all get up and change chairs, but because we're operating virtually at this time, I'll turn the meeting over to President Lara.
You mean we're not going to change all of our seats?
Well, everybody thinks we just changed, but because our squares are at the same place on the Zoom screen.
Okay.
It won't matter.
I'm so sorry. I left all my stuff in my new seat and
I'll go get it. I'll go get it.
There will
I'll meet
be
you
a
halfway.
small interruption so we can get all of Mrs. Cordero's treasures over to her.
well, now you know why I left it over there.
We didn't doubt it.
And the gift. And the card.
Way to go, Mr. President.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 15th board meeting of 2022. Right now, we're on item 9, motion to set time and date of regular. Skip one. Did I skip 8?
Motion to set time.
That's where I'm at. Motion to set time.
Designate. Motion by
Oh,
the,
excuse me. I'm sorry, Mr. Navarro. Motion to designate a secretary to the Board of Education, to the board. Currently, Superintendent Ontiveros is the secretary.
I move to name a player to be named.
Go ahead. And who is
No,
that?
no, we don't know who it is yet.
yes, the secretary to the board is always the superintendent.
Oh, is it still you
Well,
wow.
I think legally we still have to not name Mr. Ontiveros as the clerk.
Okay.
But when he is no longer there, then whoever is filling that position automatically becomes the clerk.
A
So
player to
Mr.
be-
Ontiveros will fill it in and then. Got it.
Who knows? We could have a special meeting before the end of December.
Good.
Let's do it.
Let's do it December 25th.
Fred, quit laughing. You're coming.
Okay, as far as that, we go on to item 9. Motion.
Oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It says designate, it doesn't say elect. My apologies.
Okay. Motion to set time and date of regular meetings. Currently, the second Wednesday of the month, with closed sessions beginning at 5:30 and open sessions beginning at 6 p.m. And motion to set time and date of special meetings.
So presented with the item is a listing of the second Wednesdays of the month with 5 additional fourth Wednesdays for the convening of workshop settings.
Do any of these days conflict with everybody or on the?
I have them in my calendar already.
I'll move to approve the suggested meeting schedule for
I-
2022.
I second.
It's been moved by Ms. Cordero, seconded by Ms. Flores. All in favor?
Oh, we have to do roll
Roll
call.
call, excuse me.
Roll call.
Excuse me, Ms. Cordejo's roll call?
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. Motion has been set for up and coming meetings. Item 10, County Committee on School District Organization. Motion to appoint a representative. Santa Maria, shall I read the summary? If you'd like. Santa Maria Bonita School District Board Bylaw 9100 stipulates that at its annual organizational meeting, the board shall designate representatives to serve on committees or commissions of the district, other public agencies or organizations with which the district participates or collaborates. As such, the board will designate a representative to the County Committee on School District Organizations. Do we have anybody we'd like to?
I think for a number of years, it's been unclear exactly what that person does. And I have been particularly confused because I serve on that committee, the County Committee on School District Organization. And what this is asking really relates to if there is a vacancy in our congressional district, or not supervisorial district, excuse me, then that person would be called upon to suggest a new member to take that person's place who left, died, or resigned, or whatever. So it's not generally anything that you have to attend meetings for. It's just that representative is in place just in case.
Just in case there's a.
But I also receive something annually from, or every once in a while, annually, yeah, from Denise Cora in that capacity, and it's for the area reps to the county. And so, like, for example, this year there were 3 openings, and there were Susan Salcido, Dr. Salcido nominated somebody for each of those, and then there was somebody who, another submission was made to enter that. It's, so generally speaking, it's kind of, it's not something that I receive before we even have a board meeting where I can say, hey, do you guys think there's somebody that we would nominate? It's generally something that's kind of, I sign off on for us and send back in a mostly timely manner.
Then I would suggest you continue to do that.
I'd be more than happy to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Okie dokie.
I'll second that nomination.
So Ms. Flores first, Ms. Cordero second. Roll call?
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Laura.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 11, Resolution 2009 of the Board of Education of the Santa Maria Bonita School District, Delegations of Governing Board Powers and Duties. The Santa Barbara County of Education Office requires new forms to be completed before the beginning of each calendar year, when new board members take office or other personal changes occur. The attached list of authorized signatures is similar to the last set of signatures sent to the County of Education Office, but are specific to items of regular business conducted by the Santa Maria Bonita District on a daily basis.
So the current resolution has listed Luke Ontiveros, Matthew Beecher, Brian King, and Kimberly Norton. The last 3 being part of the business department. I would move that we adopt the resolution as is.
Ms.
I second.
Cordero moves, Ms. Flores seconds. Roll call?
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Laura.
Aye. And with that, we'll adjourn to the regular board meeting, the open session. We ready? Good evening. Welcome to back to the board meeting. Roll call.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye. Here.
Mr. Valencia,
Present.
Mrs. Flores,
Here.
Mrs. Cordero. Mr. Laura.
Here. Report from closed session. Item 1, employee dismissal, information was shared. Item 2, interim superintendent. No? Oh, I don't, am I missing? Oh, I'm sorry.
You're missing the first
Missing
two.
the-
There you go.
Got it. Thank you, Ms. Cordero. Conference of Labor Negotiators, CSCA, information shared. Item B, Labor Negotiators, with SMEA, information was shared. And then I had just said item C, employee dismissal, information was shared. And item 2, interim superintendent employment, information was shared. Is that you, Luke? Oh, we already did that. I gotta flip over. Excuse me for 1 minute here. Oh, here it is, general functions, yes. Item A, inspiration, Jimenez Elementary. Mr. Ruiz, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Lara. I would say good evening to esteemed board, superintendent, and district personnel. My name is Richard Ruiz, and I have the honor of serving as principal at Dr. Francisco Jimenez PK8 school. Here accompanying me this evening is our wonderful assistant principal, Ms. Stephanie Zambo. As much as we would have loved to be there in person with all of you, our current reality makes this difficult. Through the use of technology, we will be bringing Jimenez and its scholars to you via video. We'll get to see a short video of panoramic view of Jimenez and our wonderful nights working in the area of science, mathematics, the arts, and also the use of Achieve 3000. I would like to thank Ms. Summer Arguijo for her vision of this video, and also Mr. Richard Guerrero, our videographer. As I said, this is going to be a bird's eye view of the wonderful things that our students get to experience daily. Thank you. Bienvenidos a la Escuela Jiménez.
Welcome to Jimenez,
Donde la educación y la seguridad de sus hijos son nuestras prioridades principales.
your students' safety and education is our top priority.
Vengan, les vamos a enseñar una vista panorámica de nuestra escuela.
Come on in and see a bird's eye view.
Stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice. Prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I'm learning World War I. Today we're learning about Veterans Day, but right now I'm doing Achieve, but I have to read an article and then answer questions.
Go, Mia! Oh, Mia! J.O. Mia. Good try, good try.
a good throw by, who threw the ball to Crispin? I saw a great throw by Crispin to
Good job. Let's say that one more time. Ready, go. I think I can. I think I can. I know I can.
None of the colors should be touching each other, but you could put them next to each other, kind of.
On the back of the paper, since there's a grid, and you basically follow the pattern by using coordinates. And
so this right here is the 4 representations. We got the table, the rule, the pattern, and the graph.
We did the designs. There's 1, 2, and 3.
Mr. Ruiz, that was awesome. It's good to see those kids in that dual immersion as they're singing those songs and then transitioning into English to Spanish. You can tell you guys they're progressing and you got a real grasp and you got a great staff there.
Thank you, Mr. Lara.
And Mr. Lara, if I may, I also want to commend, Mr. Ruiz and his staff at Jimenez. I know that a lot of community members want to also have their children engaged in the dual immersion program. And so I want to, commend your school for being that flagship in that regard. And I hope that our board and our community can continue to find ways to expand this important work. I know for me, it was really heartwarming. I hadn't heard the Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish before. And I thought that was really powerful, to show that the fact that our young people, right, know how to live in 2 worlds and what an asset, that is. So I commend you and your staff for doing such a wonderful job with our children.
Thank you, Mr. Valencia. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much.
And Happy New Year to your staff and your families.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, Mr. Palmerston, I'm sorry.
Dr. P is in the house.
Mr.
Good
Palmerston.
evening. Thank you, Mr. Lara. It is an honor this evening to recognize Luke Ontiveros on behalf of all district administrators. And that's an honor that as Ames president, I am pleased to join you this evening. I think Mrs. Cordero has a little help for me in recognizing Luke's service to our students, our staff, our families, and our community. On behalf of Ames, Luke, thank you for your leadership.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate your kind words, and it's been an honor and a privilege to work with all of you, all of our staff and the community, but most importantly, our 17,000 scholars that were so well represented by Jimenez's video.
And with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Cordero and wish all of you a good evening, and thank you, Luke.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
On behalf of our esteemed board of
You're muted.
You're muted. Okay, I'll try again. On behalf of our board, our esteemed Board of Education, it is my honor and privilege to begin the recognition and appreciation for your years of service with Santa Maria Bonita School District. This is in honor of your 5 years of service. Show it there first. But I do have a few more words to share with everyone before we proceed. When we were looking for a new superintendent, it took us a little longer than normal. We encountered a few little stumbles along the way, but in that process, it gave us an opportunity to really work together to create a job description that we felt reflected what the needs were for our district. Luke has referred to that job description on numerous occasions, and I have kept that job description attached with some other documents, in my little file folder that where I keep important things. And we were looking for a leader who would be a change agent for our district. We have recognized the need to ramp up, if you will, our practices and to really come together to put some systems in place and processes that will really help to facilitate better, I'm going to just say things for the sake of being not going through a big list, so that our students could be more successful. There is no doubt in my mind, having been a long time employee in the district at a variety of levels, that we have always wanted to do what is best for our students and to enable them to become strong, successful citizens in our community. We often say they are our future, and there is absolute truth in that. And though for some, 5 years seems like a long time to make something happen, but 5 years is really a relatively short period of time. And of course, no one could have ever predicted COVID. While COVID didn't stop the process, it definitely created a bit of a logjam, if you will. And we were in many ways sidetracked with all of the requirements and legal issues surrounding COVID and in-person versus virtual and all those myriad of issues. But I personally want to commend you and give you all the credit that I believe you deserve for staying the course, maintaining the focus, keeping your eye on the ball, so that we could continue to move in the right direction toward putting the right people in the right kinds of jobs, building a force of people who could work collaboratively and make progress toward achieving what we all know is possible for our students. It's been proven over and over again that students of color, students that are multilingual, students that are from poverty can be successful. And I know how much effort and dedication that has been required to accomplish what has been accomplished. And for me personally, it means a great deal. And on behalf of the board, I just want to say thank you and to let you know that I do believe we are steadfast in our belief that we must continue to move forward to make that possible for our students. So, when we're not in official meetings, and we do occasionally, although very few occasions since COVID, make jokes or kind of fool around and are not totally professional. But on behalf of the board, we have a very small token of our great appreciation for all that you have done. And I'm going to insist that you open the gift in front of everyone. And if others would like to make comments, Mr. Laura?
That makes me think something's going to pop out of the bag here. Oh, okay.
You have to just wait and find out.
No. That's okay. We closed copied your wife on how to get the blue dye out.
Thank you. That's funny.
Peanuts is the Peanuts card.
Oh my. One of my Old Town Mexican Cafe, which is one of my favorite places. So I think you probably heard a bird, got that from a bird. Thank you so much.
I tried not to make this easy.
And Home Depot, which goes along with the to-do list that my wife has been working on for 35 years.
Yes, we need to thank.
And if they don't have it at Home Depot, I can probably find it at Lowe's.
We do need to thank Carol on behalf of us from her for lending her husband to her for 5 years.
I think I can get to Amazon from my MySpace account. And if they don't have it at Costco, it can't be found. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been an honor to work here. It's been an honor to be able to come back to the town in which I was raised and, associate with the schools that I had the privilege of attending. And I appreciate your words, Linda, because I shared with a group this morning that, the world of education, it goes, for me, 35 years in a heartbeat.
Exactly.
But the train keeps on going.
Yes.
And so every time one of us gets off at a stop in Santa Maria, there's another 2,000 kids that get on. And they're the riders of the train that we really need to keep our focus on. And so I'm so appreciative of the work of our teams at all 21 of our sites, our food service, our maintenance and operations folks, especially during COVID, all the folks in this building that have coordinated that, everything that was needed to make things doable. So it's, I don't think there's ever been a time that hasn't been a challenging time. I often say there's nothing about this work that's ever been easy. What we're really tasked with is trying to make it less difficult for the benefit of kids. And so I wish good luck for everyone who's continuing on the train. I'm going to pull the cord, get off on my stop, and wave the train on in the distance. So thank you so much. It's been my honor to have had the opportunity to work with each of you.
Luke, I just want to say,
Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for your 5 years with us. It's like Linda said, it went like this. But from the day that we met and interviewed you, your ambitions and your thoughts were here, and you went above and beyond. And I want to thank you for that, for putting our kids first. And what was most important was our district. And from here on out now, every day's a Saturday.
Mhm. I also want to thank you, Luke. It's been a pleasure. I want to also thank Carol for lending you to us for 5 years and your family. I know it has taken in some of that special time, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And in terms of doing the job, no doubt. I deeply, deeply thank you for doing what you did for our district. It was time to change some of those characters, and it was time for us to change the story. You're right. Thank you.
I definitely would like to provide some context to the gift that I have for Luke here, because there's a story behind it that I think is pretty special. So as many of you know, our Bonita graduates go on to do amazing things. Luke being one of them, right? A Fessler grad. Not an El Camino, but a Fessler grad nonetheless. And I know that our Bonita graduates go on to do great things because I have the pleasure of working with them at Santa Maria High School. Years ago, our students began a campaign to allow students to wear graduation sashes, or stoles, as they're often called, that were meaningful to them. And after 4 years of meeting with administrators and teachers, our students now have the ability to wear cultural sashes that honor their various identities. For example, our students can now wear a sash that represents LGBTIQ+, African American, Asian American, Chicano, Latino, and many other cultures. This is a college and university tradition that I would like to see in our Bonita district to inspire our young people to dream big and achieve big by going to a university. So Luke, this Latino and indigenous themed cultural sash is a thank you gift to you for your many years of service to our students throughout California. May it serve as a reminder of the many lives that have benefited from the dedication of education leaders like yourself. So thank you. Thank you.
I got nothing. No, sorry. No, I just had to say, I wanted to start it off because that's how we work, right? That's kind of a little bit of our shtick. And I, certainly I echo what Linda and Ricky have said, because they were part of the process. And I think the thing that Linda went back to and that I keep going back to is that descriptor that we sent out. And I think, a lot of times people talk about buy-in, and I think that we were convinced that those were good words, but when you said that you were convinced those were good words, then we felt like there was buy-in on your part, to borrow a kind of an overused phrase. But I think that, as you alluded to, 5 years is a short period of time, or Linda alluded to really start to, it's kind of like driving the Titanic, and I guess we're not going towards an iceberg, but let's just say a tanker. But in order to make that turn, it takes a while to hang on to the wheel and steer and maneuver. And I think it's happening, right? I think that with choosing the right person to succeed you and to kind of move forward in the groundwork and the systemness that you've established, it'll give us some nimbility in any other challenges that we might face, but it'll also, I think, give us the cohesiveness and I think the dependability of understanding what our goals are as they've been set high, right, and as they've been set before us. And so I think it's keeping things forward-looking. And we talk about vision statements, and really that's what you kind of have to be, as visionary. We want to see where our kids, not just, I think, as you've said so many times, not just where our kid looks like when they're in 8th grade, maybe not even what they look like when they're a 12th grader or a senior in high school, but maybe when they're at Hancock, when they're G14, when they're grade 14. So we want to be visionary, and so I appreciate your really kind of launching us on that path, and really initiating all the things that need to get going with that, because there's a lot of moving parts. And I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate your candor. It's what we need, is carrying people in the right positions, but also people of honesty, and dedication. So, and that's certainly who you are. So, thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I am muted. Items, calendar of up and coming meetings, activities, and events. Winter break. All right, students, December 20th, 2021 through January 10th, 2022. Winter holiday, school sites, Sousa closed December 23rd, 24th, 27th, 30th, and 31st of 2021. Public comments. Public comments are intended for members of the public to address the Board of Education on items involving the school district. Such testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes or 450 words per person per subject, and 15 minutes total each topic. If an answer to a specific question is requested, the board president will, if appropriate, direct administration to respond in writing. The Board of Education is interested in hearing your comments on any agenda item or general public comment. Please note that this form is defined as a public record under the California Public Records Act, CPRA, and therefore subject to public disclosure upon request. Do we have any public comments?
We do have 7 submissions for public comment tonight.
Okay.
They all have been designated as non-agenda items, but 3 of them are around the superintendent selection process. So I'd like to hold those till the end.
Okay.
And actually incorporate those in with item 19B. And I apologize for jumping ahead, but also ask that if we could pull that item to the front of the agenda when we approve the agenda, make that the first item so that we can have the speakers speak at that point. If
Do I have a motion that we move item 19B?
I make that motion.
Ms. Flores moves, Ms. Cordero seconds. Everybody in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
We will move that up.
So with that, Brian, if you could admit Carrie Milhorn has a comment on a non-agenda item relative to student mental health. Is Ms. Milhorn present? Super.
Good evening. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. Sorry, it takes me a minute to unmute. I hope this won't count on my 3 minutes, but Jimenez did a great job tonight. Lovely. And Luke, best wishes. Mr. Anaveros, best wishes in your future. Sorry, the first names are up there. Okay.
Yeah. It's all good.
So I'm Carrie Milhorn. I teach at El Camino. I've been a teacher with the district for 25 years. I've taught 1st, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and I currently teach art and ELD. I'm here to talk about failing students and increased mental health issues. We are failing our students. We failed our students when we weren't giving them enough PE time until a complaint was made and the situation was corrected. Thank you, Mark Gross. We failed our English learners by not giving them electives. In 2017, I notified my administration, members of the board, and others at the district office that I believed we were violating Title VI. I am sad to say that I did not do more. Now that schools are reincorporating CTE, someone spoke up, and starting next year, all of our students will have electives. Our greatest failing is our response to COVID. The Surgeon General has issued a warning about the mental health crisis among youth. According to the LA Times, in early 2021, visits to emergency rooms in the US for suspected suicide attempts were 51% higher for adolescent girls and 4% higher for adolescent boys compared to 2019. The article also said that symptoms of depression and anxiety doubled during the pandemic. Some claim that the actions taken were necessary. You could have believed that at first, but now we know better. We know that statistically, COVID poses very little threat to children. Kids under 18 make up 0.0008 of the US COVID deaths. Every child's death is a tragedy, but it does not justify these actions. We are making harmful policies. At schools, we're seeing students suspended for vaping, being under the influence, fighting, all evidence of the mental health crisis. And it's time to speak up for our kids to stop filling them with fear. 98.4% of the people who got COVID survived. And I am not saying that it is not serious, but we have learned how to deal with it, with therapies and vaccines. But parents have a right to make health decisions for their children. Employees have a right to make health decisions. It's time to say no to all mandates. We must stop failing our students and each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next comment is submitted by Melissa Gutierrez. So, Mr. Ricky, if you could allow Melissa Gutierrez in, please.
Hello.
Gutierrez.
Good evening. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. Good evening, board members. My name is Melissa Gutierrez. I am CSEA Chapter 129's President-elect and lead chair of negotiations. I'm sorry that I am not coming to you with celebratory news tonight about negotiations. Unfortunately, CSEA has recently declared impasse on a newly created IT job description for our computer lab techs. We feel very strongly and passionately about our IT department members, and we feel frustrated and let down by the district's negotiating team. We came to negotiations prepared. We have done hours, even days of extensive research preparing for everything leading up to this point. My team and I called other districts, looked at neighboring district salary schedules and job descriptions. We looked at our own district, looked at our job class families and how we pay employees that work in classifications that have levels. Our findings determined that the district's proposal was to underpay our computer lab techs. We came to the table and presented the district with good, solid information that led us to our last, best, and final offer. But even when we presented our findings, the district still couldn't see the value in our members and the work that they do, the out-of-class work that they've been doing for over 3 years. We are not asking for an unfair or unreasonable amount. The difference is 69 cents per hour, and that is at the top of the range that we're asking for. When we went remote and everyone was home, some of our members, including our computer lab techs, were at the sites working hard and working out of class to make sure that our students, parents, teachers, and all employees had the technology they needed. Their hard work allowed our community and our students to continue to receive information and an education. In a time when they are being called essential employees, We are now being asked to prove the value in the work that they do. Our computer lab techs were praised for the hard work they did with a Heroes Work Here banner. Yet when it came time to acknowledge that, management got the raise. Management was acknowledged and recognized by getting promotions that included pay increases, but classified just continues to be expected to do the work, including the out-of-class work that they are still doing today with no consideration for a fair or livable wage. In my almost 11 years, I've never spoken to the board, nor have I been through impasse, but I will continue to speak up. I will rally my members, and I will do so for as long as it takes. I urge the Board of Education to please speak with your negotiating team. Please ask them to recognize these employees. CSEA is ready to meet and work through this with the district team. I will leave you with something that my dad used to say all the time. Skilled labor isn't cheap, and cheap labor isn't skilled. What type of employees does the district think we are? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next submission for comment is Stacy Boom from Tommy Kuntz Junior High. Mr. Ricky is Boom. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind letting her in.
Got him.
Stacy, the board is ready.
I'm here, just trying to get everything opened up. Thank you. Good evening.
Welcome.
Congratulations, Luke. Great to hear all the nice things people had to say about you. Great night to see everybody, and Jimenez was awesome. I am esteemed board members, district personnel, and community members. Last year, the district informed the union that they wanted to implement a 7-day period where all junior high teachers teach 6 periods. We teachers are strongly opposed to this change. Our contract states that we will teach no more than 5 classes. We finalized our contract over the summer with cautious hope that we would not be asked to teach 6 classes. That is not the case. The district is going ahead with what they wanted, regardless of teacher input. This semantics maneuver is the type of behavior that destroys teacher confidence with the district and contributes to the low morale amongst classroom teachers. In the last 3 years, students have gone from 80 minutes of math and language art every single day to 55 minutes a day to the new proposed schedule of 47 minutes per day. That's a decrease of 37 minutes. That is cutting the critical time for students in arguably the most important subjects, math and English, almost in half. Why would anyone agree to take so much time away from such important student learning? Junior high teachers do not believe this schedule change is in the best interest of students. We wonder whose interests are served by such huge cuts to student academic time, not to mention the lack of trust this creates for teachers. The district wants junior high teachers to teach 6 of 7 class periods, no matter what the contract says. Their solution is to make one of these classes ungraded. This is a classic bait and switch, tricking teachers into agreeing to something and then completely taking advantage of the words by changing the meaning of what a class is. If an ungraded class is not a class, why do students need to spend their valuable time there? If it is so important for students to have 7 classes a day, how does the district make the argument that one of those 7 classes is so unimportant it does not need to be graded? This ungraded period takes students away from actual curriculum, and according to the district, it's not even a class. How does this help our students recover from this pandemic and get back on track with their education? If it is so important that students have 7 classes, all of those classes should be graded. Ungraded classes are, by the district definition, not classes. So why are we sacrificing so much for nothing? If the students must have 7 periods, the teachers should have 2 prep periods, as they are doing in the high school district. The district wants teachers to teach 6 of 7. and is using the semantics of the contract to get their way. This is the type of forced policy that destroys teacher morale and does nothing for students. Is it worth the price for this ungraded, not a class period? Will the benefit be worth the pain? Thank you very much for listening tonight.
Thank you.
The next request to submit comment is submitted by John Raymond. Mr. Ricky, is Mr. Raymond in the waiting room? Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Raymond.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hey, first of all, I would like to correct the board. It's 5.5 years, if I'm not mistaken, that you've been with us. And I wanted to tell Luke, thank you very much for your time. I mean, when I got on the Measure T as president, I think it was about 5 years ago when you first came on, you know, I didn't know who you were, or what you were, or how you were going to act. But I've dealt with a lot of superintendents in the last 40 years of my life, and you're probably one of the best I've ever dealt with. You're honest, you're straightforward. If you disagree, we could argue about it, and you and I would come to an understanding. You know, and a lot of times you changed my mind. I didn't think anybody could change my mind, not even my wife. But I wanted to thank you very much for the time I got to have working with you and Mr. Beecher as president of the Measure T building at New School. And I wanted to wish you good luck and enjoy yourself in Florida. You might want to stay when you come out here next week. But changing the subject just for a second, one thing that I would hope that the board would do in going through their process, that they would look at, you know, Luke set up a great number of employees that are very well satisfied, like Bijou, Dutra, Beecher, and all that in their situations. And he had inherited a lot better staff than when he first came on, in my opinion. And I'm very opinionated, as everybody knows. But I would hope the board would look at somebody, not just because they got a or a certificated type of measure behind them, but they would look for somebody that could be strong, because the union in Santa Maria, Bonita, plus unions all over the state, are very radical, in my opinion, and they think they know more than management. And if they were going to do that, they should change and go into administration and try to work their own ways. But anyway, thank you very much for your time. And again, Luke, thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you when I get to California soon. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, John. And so the next three requests for submitting comment are relative to that item 19A. So what I'd like to do is bring those individuals in, and then we'll go to that item. And so the first one, the first submitter, Mr. Ricky, is Jose Farias.
Good evening.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, community leaders. And good evening, Mr. Ontiveros. And I will correct everybody. I'll stand with that. For 5.5 years of giving of yourself, your sacrificial love, and all your attention that you gave us as parents, involved parents, and our meetings and community meetings, and sometimes our crazy ideas for fundraising and all that great stuff. And we're going to miss you. Really, we're going to miss you. Your presence meant a lot to us at every meeting. Your presence meant a lot to us as a support when a lot of parents didn't feel supported. You came into the room and you would just let them feel that you're with them. You're on the same page. You're with them, and you understood. And you're going to be missed a lot. So I'd like to go ahead and address the board in regards to speaking. My name is Jose Farias. I am currently still active in serving as an involved parent, and I am continuing with my volunteer work. I continue for 7+ years. And I continue also to advocate for parent involvement, both for Spanish, English, and Mixteco speaking parents. I am currently still serving as a vice chair for your DLAC committee there at the local school, at the school district site. I serve at the Tunnel School City, also council, school site council, and also as the official LCAP representative for Tunnel School. I continue to be also a community involved leader and also serving with Tommy Coons, which is a passion, the junior high schools, to keep the kids in the right direction and to encourage them and not discourage them, encourage them when they're getting ready for high school and giving them whatever incentives it takes to encourage them to get there. I am also the ELAC president for Pioneer Valley High School. I continue to be involved in parent involvement, and I will continue to be there for the parents to encourage their kids to stay in school and get ready for college. So on that note, I know we're talking about the things and that we want in a leader. Gonna be hard missing you, Mr. Ontiveros, but we want to, as a parents of speaking, want a leader who is transparent, people person, approachable, good with communication, is not afraid to be approachable, full of compassion, a leader that wants to look at and take La Bonita School District into the future, looking at something, and also not to be afraid of technology. You know that I'm passionate with technology, used in a proper, good fashion. It could take us very far in a good, positive way. We have great students that love technology, and we got very bright students in the school district and following up into high school as well. A leader that's also a love for families, a love for education, that wants to take and see these kids not just finish high school, not just go to community college, but see them succeed, see them be leaders, see them to come back and want to work for La Bonita School District, take them somewhere, make them achieve, to love this place. This is a great place we live in. We're very fortunate, and one that cares and shows our care for our family values that we have here in our local area. So that's what we have expressed and we will continue to do for our new leader. Thank you.
Mr. Fareras.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farias.
Gracias.
The next comment request is from Adan Navarrete. Thank you, Mr. Ricky.
Welcome, Adan.
Gracias, buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Antes que nada, quiero darle las gracias al señor Ontiveros por su tiempo de servicio. Quiero desearle la mejor de las bendiciones y que tenga en todo lo que emprenda en el futuro. Dios lo siga bendiciendo, le dé salud y le siga dando larga vida al señor Ontiveros. Muchísimas gracias por sus servicios.
Thank you.
Oh, awesome.
Bueno, buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Adán Navarrete y soy el representante de DILAC aquí en el distrito. Represento a la escuela Libon. ¿Me va a interpretar? Ok. Bueno, mi mensaje para todos es que necesitamos ahora para el nuevo superintendente que sea una persona, un líder comprometido, que tenga un compromiso de sacar adelante a nuestra comunidad, que conecte no solamente con su personal aquí en el distrito, sino que conecte también con los maestros, con los padres que estamos trabajando aquí en el distrito como voluntarios, para que juntos podamos seguir trabajando unidos y podamos sacar adelante el distrito y a nuestros hijos. Es bien importante que conecte con la comunidad y que conozca el entorno de lo que es la comunidad de Santa María, porque de ello depende que el distrito salga adelante, de ello depende que nuestros hijos tengan un desarrollo académico sobresaliente y que trabaje desde el corazón, no solamente que trabaje desde la razón, sino que trabaje humanamente, que sea un líder humano, que trabaje y que sea honesto, que sea íntegro y que sea responsable. Así que este es mi mensaje para ustedes y para las personas que van a tomar la sabia decisión de conectar a la persona correcta que nuestro distrito y nuestra comunidad necesita. Muchísimas gracias. Este es el mensaje que tengo para todos ustedes y que Dios les bendiga.
Gracias, Mr. Naradete.
Gracias.
I will interpret that into English. First of all, I just want to say how thankful I am to have you, Mr. Ontiveros, as our superintendent. I just want to say thank you for your service and may God bless you. So today, good night to all. My name is Adana Barrete, and I am the DLAC president and representative here in the District of Santa Maria. My message for all of you is that we need a superintendent who will be involved in the community, who knows our needs as Hispanics, Latinos, and who knows our culture. Above all, that he is a human being who works from the heart and not from the reason. It is important that he connects with each person so that he can move the district forward, because the future of our children depends on it. They are the most important part, not only of our future, but of the world. The difference is that we need a person who has a commitment to the community here in Santa Maria, who knows the needs that there are, and not only academic, but also multicultural needs. Since we not only have Latinos, but also other ethnicities, he or she has to connect with each one of the members of our community. Thank you, and may God bless you.
And the final request for comment is from Francisco Lozano. Is he in the room? Thank you, Mr. Ricky.
Welcome, Francisco.
Okay. Buenas noches, señor Ontivero. En primer lugar, agradecemos por su trabajo y sus servicios a nuestros hijos y a nuestra comunidad escolar. Le deseamos lo mejor para usted y su familia, señor Ontivero. Gracias. Mi nombre es Francisco Lozano. Soy miembro del DILAT del Distrito Bonitas y un líder también en nuestra comunidad mixtecas. Mi comentario de esta noche es específicamente sobre la búsqueda del nuevo superintendente. Aunque los padres tuvieron la oportunidad de completar la encuesta, también tenemos la responsabilidad como comunidad de recomendar a la Junta de la Mesa Directiva del Distrito Bonitas que busque un superintendente que tenga una visión de apoyo para nuestros hijos e hijas y que apoye nuestras familias haciendo una conexión desde nuestros hogares a las escuelas con profesores, y también debe ser bilingüe. La razón de esto es porque tenemos un porcentaje tan alto de estudiantes latinos y porque es una necesidad, no una preferencia. Es esencial que esta persona no solo puede hablar español y comprender nuestra cultura, sino que también pueda unir a la comunidad. Ese es mi comentario. Gracias, miembro de la mesa directiva, que consideren en nuestros comentarios. Gracias.
Gracias, señor Lozano.
Gracias, señor.
Good evening. We are thankful for your work, Mr. Ontiveros, and your service to our children and community. We wish you the best. Good evening to the members of the Santa Maria Bonita School District Board. My name is Francisco Lozano, and I'm a district member, a DLAC, a leader, and also a leader in our Mixteco community. My comment this evening is especially about the search for the new superintendent. Although parents had the opportunity to fill out the survey, we also have the responsibility as a community to recommend to the SMBSD board to look for a superintendent that has a vision of support for our sons and daughters and to support our families by making a connection from our homes to the schools with teachers, but also that he or she is bilingual. The reason for this is because we have such a high percentage of Latino students and because it is a necessity, not a preference. It is essential for this person to not only be able to speak Spanish and understand our culture, but that they may also be able to bring the community together. This is my comment. Thank you. Thank you, everyone from the board members.
Thank you. Comment?
Those are all the public comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President, can I have just a point of order? So if we're going to move this step up now as we approve the agenda, will we state as amended? Is that what you're asking, Mr. Ontiveros? And okay, and then go approve consent and then go to item whatever it is, 1900.
Sure. It's
17.
It was a lot. That's all I remember.
19B. Yeah, if that's the board preference, absolutely.
Do I have approval of the agenda as presented?
I'll move to
Or
accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
Ms. Cordero approves, Mr. Hollingshead seconds. Roll call?
Mr. Hollingshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero, Mr. Lara.
Aye. Item 17, the consent agenda.
Laura, I had on items 7D and E, there are two purchasing agreements, and I was going to ask for clarification on those items. So I don't know if we necessarily need to pull them, but I know that probably this is one of those times when something is going to be new to Mr. Valencia or hasn't been done before in his term, perhaps. But also I had questions as to whether that was in anticipation of those possibilities we're getting in on those agreements, rather than there's actually a purchase to be made.
We can.
Can you speak to that, Matt, or?
Speak to that, Matt, for us?
Yes, we do anticipate. I'm going to have to look specifically at the agreements, but yes, we do anticipate making purchases under these agreements. What we're talking about specifically is what's called cooperative purchasing arrangements. Again, as a public agency, we're required for projects in excess of certain dollar amounts to have a public bidding progress to create a level playing field. We are allowed under the regulations to rely on the level playing field that is created by other school districts or municipalities, as long as we do certain steps in due diligence to make sure that the piggybackable contract remains valid, and a few other checks that we always do in advance of bringing it to the board meeting. We've done several in the past, and Mr. Valencia, being new, may not have seen these types of arrangements before, but it makes our process and timeline much quicker to address urgent needs. And so that's what you have before you tonight on these items. And just in the interest of saving time for other conversations, we have started putting these cooperative purchasing arrangements into the consent agenda, so that the specific questions can be answered if there are any, but the business at hand can occur in a timely fashion.
Thanks, Matt. And I just thank you for that really succinct explanation. I think, so I just wanted to clarify that we were joining these agreements, as we often do, to get in a timely manner for some of those upcoming purchases, even though we don't have a specific one at this juncture. And just so that, like you said, if it's going to be in consent, then Mr. Valencia has an understanding of what that process is, if he doesn't already. So that's great clarification for me. Is that good for you, Ricardo? Awesome.
Absolutely.
Then I would move to approve the consent agenda as is.
It was moved by Mr. Hollingshead, second by Mrs. Cordero. Roll call.
Mr. Hollingshead,
Ooh, aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero, Mr. Lara.
Aye. Motion carries. Action item 18. B, superintendent profile. We want to move it.
Yeah, yes, the superintendent profile.
Yes.
That's discussion item 19B.
19B.
When Mr. Hollins had said 1900, I was looking at
I was looking for the same thing, John.
You know what? I've been reading like the budget stuff so much, and there was must have been a line item on it or something.
So as we have gone through the process of collecting surveys and meeting with community groups, our team from Leadership Associates has shared with you the proposed superintendent profile and are here to lead a discussion and get consensus to move forward to utilize that in the transition process. So I'll turn it over to Fred Van Leuven and David Verdugo, who are here from Leadership Associates.
Well, good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure for us to be here and also to see Luke in his last meeting. You know, it's fun watching the manipulation of 1900. I'd be freaking out too if I were looking for that many agenda items as well.
Oh, I already added a special meeting. You guys didn't hear about that yet?
Oh, I heard it. I didn't recognize it though. So okay. That's the good part.
Yeah, you know me too well already.
Yeah. So there's really two things we want to do today. One is just get a consensus that this is what what you guys have said, and you've given some feedback on it. We think we've added those things, but we want to just go through that process. And then we're going to end up putting that on your website and also on our website, and we will distribute it to already the 21 people who have requested an application. So we've already started this process. EdCal hit this past Monday, and it comes back in January. And we'll go over the rest of the timeline just to keep you aware of what's going on. But the next real checkpoint right now is to more or less bless what we have here that you've all seen. And so David's going to participate in this process, and I'm going to sit back and help.
Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
You ladies and gentlemen, and Luke, congratulations on a wonderful career. Outstanding. Fred had mentioned the position profile. In fact, Linda mentioned the previous position profile when that process was taking place as you were searching for a superintendent and when Luke was made available to you. It's similar in that we have gathered information from 52 different sessions, if you will, as well as the survey that took place. And if you have that in front of you, we want to ask if there's any questions. We think it's important, obviously, since EdCal has already run once with the advertisement relating to the superintendent's position there. And as Fred mentioned, we already have 21 individuals who have requested applications. And so this is an important item as they reflect on what I'm going to call the match and the fit, and the assessment that they would make on a personal and professional basis to determine whether or not they are one of those good matches and fits for the school district. The position profile that I believe you have in front of you starts with just a very brief description of the position, a professional profile as well. There's a number of bullets there. I know that Fred received some modifications earlier in the week. This past week, we submitted those and integrated those into the position profile bullets that you see. And then it begins also with a personal profile as well. And then it follows with desired educational experience, the selection process, salary and contract, application requirements, a brief description of the district and the community, your core values and vision. And then finally, and I've made the changes with the reorganization already. You may not see that on your copy, but on the official copy, I've made those changes regarding Mr. Laura being the president and so on, Mrs. Flores the vice president and so on. So if you have an opportunity to review those, we'd like to find out whether or not there's any further modifications that need to be made to this document. Any questions? As Fred mentioned, we're looking for consensus here. I will say that, and I don't mind saying that some of the comments made by some of the folks regarding the characteristics were in fact captured. I think if you were to reflect on some of these bullet points, you'll see and sense the capturing of some of those thoughts that had been shared by the public comment. Fred, do you recall the number of surveys that took place?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that we were totally blown away with the amount of the Spanish surveys that we had. We had over 700, which is a historical amount. In fact, I kind of know some of the things that you're doing to get more engagement with parents. And I want to learn more a little bit, because I steal these ideas when I start talking to other districts, in which what you have done from a district and the outreach going down to the school sites is just phenomenal. And this is an outreach of that. But I think we were almost 3,000 people altogether with the surveys and the people that we spoke with, and both the Spanish. So a really good amount. I know a couple folks were some concerned because some we had all of these sessions, and some maybe weren't as attended as well. But what's happened, and I said this in the beginning, more people use the survey. If we were really old school, we'd be sitting probably in a district office someplace, and people, have to come find us. And it's not very effective. This is a way to get more people. And the survey, obviously, either through the Zoom or through the survey has been pretty effective. So you have a really good turnout, very strong. The Spanish survey, again, it's a model that both Dave and I were blown away by that. And it says something about the kinds of outreach that you're doing. And I agree with what David said with the speakers that were talking today. I think, the affective side is really important in this position. And that's what's really been captured, both from the teacher side and the classified side of the other employees, and then the community. I think that was one of the things. So I think we've, the other thing, it pretty much mirrored the things that you said in the very beginning, which really shouldn't be a surprise either. So if you don't really have any more changes in it, if you're good with it, then what we would do is, I think we've made the changes. We will make sure that staff gets it. It needs to be put on your website. It'll go on our website. We will be sending it out to the 21 applicants who have requested this, and anybody else now who will turn them in. we're going to have quite a few applicants. And so since we're moving on, I want to tell you what the next step is, just as a reminder. On January 10th, we have one more EdCal run. And then we've also had people calling us. So that just because this hasn't been out there, it's been out there this as of Monday, but we've had people calling us asking and wanting to know more about this as soon as we, got the summary done and all those things. This closes on the 20th. The next time that you're going to see us is February 3rd, where you're going to sit down and you're going to be punished with all of the applications. You're going to see everything. If you thought all of the materials you saw for the survey was a lot, you're going to see quite a bit more. You'll see all of the applications. We will have vetted them, and we will have be able to show how they match or different things in reference checks. So February 3rd is the next time that you'll actually see us. And then we have February 10th and 11th are the actual interviews, and we'll decide that when we get to the 3rd, how you want to handle it. And there's a couple decisions we make. And then you guys just made the decision tonight for your regular board meeting, and we had tentatively set March 9th. That's when the contract has to be approved, and it has to be at a regularly scheduled board meeting. So that is aligned with what you've had. And I think we're pretty good. So I'll give you, as this thing continues to roll, when we close, I'll give you an idea of how many people and, where they're coming from, and just some general stuff, when it closes on the 20th. So that'd be the next thing you sort of hear from me. So I think we're good. David, can you think of anything I left off?
Just that when we do submit a update with regards to the number of applicants, we will also provide the board what their current position is. So in other words, let's say, for example, of the 21 people who have requested applications currently, we could be able to share with you that 4 of them are current superintendents, 7 are deputy soups or assistant soups. So it'll help the board, I think, get a profile of the volume, the sheer number, but also of their position, of course. So that will be in the update that we'll provide you in February.
And we have a portal, so all this stuff, we'll get the email addresses right this next time. Or I guess it was my email address that went into your spam. My feelings were hurt because it went into your spam, but I think we worked that one out. We will give you the opportunity to see things electronically, and we're going to give you hard copies of this too. It's all confidential, so you're going to be the keeper of it. We will figure out, depending on what's going on with COVID, if we're able to have in-person interviews or if we have to do virtual, and we'll be street legal and make sure we do whatever we're supposed to do, whatever the behavior is we need to behave. So David and I have done a couple. We haven't done very many over the 2 years, but we've completed 1 or 2 of them recently in person. And, just like you guys, you spread them out and you have good air and all those things, but we'll wait and see what happens. February 10th doesn't seem like that long ago or that far in advance, but as crazy as stuff, depending on what you read, right? We'll make sure we're protecting everybody, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the February 3rd selection meeting.
And I have a question about that.
Yes.
Is that all going to be virtual? And will we have an opportunity prior to February 3rd to start reviewing so that we can have discussion?
Oh yeah, you're not going to discuss with anybody until we all come together. You're going to get the materials, and you'll have a lot of time to be able to review it, and you'll have it electronically initially because we can push those out pretty quick. But yeah, you'll have plenty of time. It closes on the 20th, and we will have started vetting before then. And the pressure's on us to be able. The hard part's getting all these materials to you. So we will get that to you, and you'll have, I'd say, at least 4 or 5 days to be able to look at it.
Okay, and our meeting on the 3rd will be most likely virtual?
Yes, I would say probably yes.
And I know that's not an open session kind of thing. Do we have to alert the public or do any post anything
Yeah,
or?
it's a regular board meeting that you go from open session into closed session, and it's, yes. And we will get you the language for that so that a
Okay, well,
person has that when
February
we do
3rd
that.
is not a regular board meeting for us.
No, it is
That's
not a regular.
No, that it's not on our calendar right now. That's why I'm asking these questions.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
if we need to make it a board meeting, then we will, but it is not currently. Our board meeting is February 9th.
okay, so you have actually two board meetings that you're going to have to deal with. One is the 3rd, which is the selection process, which is closed session. The other is when you do the interviews. And if it's a 1 or 2 day interview process, those are both open session, go to closed session, and then you're doing the interviews.
Mrs. Cordero, you're correct. Linda, you're correct. On February 3rd, that's a meeting that will be scheduled. It'll go from open session to closed session. Typically, we would need between 2.5, perhaps as much as 3 hours. So generally, that's why we don't have them on a regular board meeting date.
Right, I appreciate that. And I just am, because that was not a date that we just approved, I was needing clarification regarding that. So my next question, having participated in that process, and you're right, it could very easily take 3 hours, if not longer. Is there a possibility that we could meet at 5? And I'm asking and going to look at my fellow board members, because as far as I'm concerned, the earlier we could get started, then there's not as much pressure to hurry up and get finished, because some people still have to get up and go to work.
So when we started this whole process, we said, this is your search. So you tell us what time you want us to start the thing.
Is everybody available if we did 4?
I have it on my calendar as a special board meeting already.
Yes. Well, February 3rd, we could set it for 4. Does that work in your guys' calendar?
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Okay. February 3rd, open session at 4, they go to close.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to be
Questions?
problematic, but.
Yep. No, this
Thank
is,
you.
this is why we're doing this. Okay.
You're muted.
Yeah, we have our own board meeting on the 9th, and then there's the special meetings on the 10th and the 11th.
Okay.
No, the interviews are the 10th and the 11th.
Yeah, the special meeting that we have to schedule, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the 3rd is special.
I just know.
Yeah, they still need to be made public that we're having those meetings.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think I was just asking that they be put on the schedule too.
Yes, time and date. 4 o'clock with everybody? 4 o'clock on the 3rd, gentlemen.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good one.
Gotta get back to where it was.
Good luck on that. I lost my place already too.
So I think we've covered everything. You see the next time you get an idea of how the cadence of this thing's going to roll out. We certainly appreciate all of the stuff you've done so far in reviewing all the materials and getting to this point. And we're going to start, all the things now start happening behind the scenes. So you may think nothing's happening, but there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening. So anyway, we appreciate, again, thank you for getting us on the agenda and having this. Luke, congratulations on a fantastic going away party too.
Ms. Cordero has another question.
Oh, okay.
The finalized version of the application, the profile, etc., we will be able to see that on the web page, or can you send that to us? Are there any changes from what you sent us last week?
Just the one change that David talked about is we changed because you just named presidents and
right. Okay.
And there were changes that what went on the agenda is the the most recent one, minus the change in the president and the vice president,
Okay.
and I guess the clerk too. So,
Mhm.
So you folks will recall that Becky Banning, our administrative assistant, will formalize that with Kristen and Brian.
Mhm. Okay.
And we'll do that on our website. And we do ship out this information to those various folks that have already shown some interest. You have as many as one already.
Okay.
And, so yes, we're all set.
Okay, and your website is leadershipassociates.com.
you'd think we'd know that, wouldn't you? I just click on a button. Let me see if I can find a card.
It's leadershipassociates.org, all one word.
Leaderassociate.org.
Arrow, it's www.leadershipassociates.org.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I confirm that as well.
Any other, Mr. Valencia?
Yeah, a question that I have, Fred and David, is did we have any issues? I know we threw out a lot of different community organizations such as Altrusa, the NAACP, LULAC. Did you have any issues reaching out to any of those organizations?
I did not, Mr. Valencia. They were all very gracious. They were all very timely. And of course, their input and much of the prioritized themes that came from not only the survey, but the personal stakeholder conversations is what we captured in the position profile. So I want to assure you that the majority of those things that were brought forward have been captured accordingly. I think the other thing that I would say, Mr. Valencia, is upon every stakeholder input session that we had via Zoom, we reminded not only those folks, but those that were participating to remind the colleagues that maybe were not on the Zoom to be able to go to the survey. And what we very often heard, and particularly with the volume and the numbers that we received, we feel very confident that that word spread very rapidly. I think you folks were in the thousands within the first 3 days.
That's what you said.
Remarkable. And of course, as Fred mentioned, the number of Spanish recipients, or rather responding, was remarkable as well. I personally have never seen that many responses.
I'm calling it a leadership world record. You guys are getting credit for it. That's just how it is.
Well, I use the word gracious, and I know that when I spoke to the Mexico representatives and the DLAC group, there was just this kind of a united effort to make sure that their voice was being heard, that we were capturing all of the information. And in fact, it was one of your teachers that was assisting us in that process. And then, of course, you also had an interpreter for the Mexico. And I thought, I mean, I have a deeper, greater appreciation for what you folks are doing with not only your indigenous groups, but with all of your families.
That's really great to hear, because that's exactly what we've been advocating for as a board right from the beginning, particularly with our indigenous families, which are often inadvertently, not serviced as well as they could be. And so it's really good to hear that our families, many of them, had the opportunity to voice those perspectives. So making sure that we're uplifting, right, and elevating those perspectives that often don't get to be heard for translation issues and things like that, or accessibility issues. So thank you all.
You just had this validated through that numbers of having that many surveys returned. And we also had folks that came in and talked with David. So it's, again, this is like a self-study that you're discovering as you're going through this. Things you knew, things you didn't know, things you were hoping. And I'll tell you, it was really, it was a blessing and a surprise for us. And it's a model. The things, whatever you're doing, and it may be small tweaks that are doing that other people don't understand. And I need to talk with Luke more and maybe staff more so I can learn about it, because it needs to be replicated. You guys should be very proud about that. So anyway, you have another rest of a board meeting to deal with.
Yeah, we're gonna have to hook them up with Tammy. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time again, and we will, you'll hear from us, but we will see you on the 3rd at 4 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Days.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
folks. Take care.
Take care.
Yep.
Well,
Thank you again.
holidays. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and the families.
Thank you, sir.
I'll make the recommendation that the Board of Education acknowledge receipt of the discussion of the superintendent's profile generated by Leadership and Associates as presented.
I second.
Nope. Acknowledgement.
Sorry.
Action
We'll
item.
second the acknowledgement.
Action item. What is it? 19A.
That's why.
18A.
Roman numeral, 6th grade.
Resolution 21-10, resolution recognizing a state of emergency and authorizing teleconference meeting pursuant to AB 361. Mr. Ontivero.
And again, this is the resolution recommended by CSBA to continue to be able to maintain the meetings in distance learning and or in distant format. I want to commend the board. You know, there's been lots of questions. You know, why haven't you opened up? And we're seeing this uptick, and you can't be too cautious. I mean, it's inconvenient. As I'm watching the next board meeting from the other side of the screen, I won't be wearing a mask.
So you're gonna come in and
What's that?
come in and do it.
Yeah, I'll just check in for a few minutes.
Maskless.
Maskless. But this is the resolution that allows us to extend that period for an additional 30 days.
Everybody understand it? We're still going with this.
Resolution recognizing the state of emergency teleconference meetings pursuant to AB 361 to make finding of the current whatever AB 361 and then for accepting teleconference agreement and meeting remotely as prescribed.
I second.
It was moved by Ms. Cordero and second by Mr. Valencia. All in favor? No. Roll call. Excuse me, Ms. Cordero.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 18B, certification of first interim report for 2021-22. Mr. Beecher.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lara. It is that time. December is when we do a lot of our financial housekeeping, bringing you the first interim report. Many times we have the financial statement audit for you as well. Circumstances and waivers allow that to be a little bit later, so we'll bring that to a later meeting. But tonight, Mr. King has an update for the district's current year budget, and then also kind of a look ahead at the next 2 fiscal years to give the board an idea of how we see things shaping up for us financially. Mr. King?
Great, thank you, Matt.
Welcome, Mr. King.
Thank you. So, as Mr. Beecher mentioned, I'll be going over our first interim budget this evening. So why do we have a first interim? Well, it's to meet the requirements of AB 1200 to certify that the district can meet its obligations in the current year and the subsequent 2 years. Also discuss any changes to the budget since adoption. Staff have been in place for months now. Enrollment in CBEDS is known and the state budget has been signed. So the assumptions that I used for first interim, so enrollment in ADA, the enrollment I used for budget adoption was 81 higher than it is for first interim. We have a better idea of what our enrollment is. Our estimated ADA for this year is 16,018, but our estimated funded ADA is 16,387. So you do have a 1-year hold harmless when you have decreasing enrollment, but as a result of COVID, we've had that a rolling 1 year hold harmless that they've kind of kept. So that has actually helped us out this year. On the revenue side, our LCFF revenue increased by over $7.7 million. That's made up of two things. Our base grant did decrease slightly by $71,000. And then we also have a 15% concentration grant add-on of over $7.8 million. On my next slide, I'm going to go into a little more detail on that 15% concentration grant add-on. So bear with me. Our restricted programs carryover is $3.9 million. So what that is when we create the budget in May and June, we don't know what our carryover is for our restricted programs. So when we close the year, then we actually know what our true carryover is for the restricted programs. So we put that into budget at first interim. We do have COVID dollars, carryover plus new dollars of over $70 million. We have a lottery increase, $457,000, some local revenue increase of $263,000. And then on the expenditure side, in budget, there is the bargaining unit salary raises for certificated, classified, and management. We do budget that full 50% concentration grant add-on of 7.8. We also do budget on the expenditure side, all of those COVID dollars, the 70 million. And also on the expenditure side, we rebalance our budget around programs, the needs, the vacancies, subs, and extra time like that. So the 50% concentration grant add-on, this was not mentioned in the May revise, so we had no clue about it at budget adoption. And but the enacted budget does include $1.1 billion of ongoing dollars to augment the concentration grant component of LCFF. So I'm going to take a step back and define a few things before I move forward. So the supplemental and concentration grant amounts are calculated based on the percentage of unduplicated pupils in the district. We've always hovered around 90 to 92%. And so for the supplemental grant funding is equal to 20% of the base grant for each high need student. And then a concentration grant goes to districts which have more than 55% of students that are high need. So for each student above 55% threshold, districts receive funding equal to 50% of the base grant. And so the increase, what this did is it increases the funding factor from 50% to 65% of the base grant. And that additional 15%, which is the $7.8 million, is to be used to increase the number of credentialed and classified staff who provide direct services to pupils. And the increase is measured by comparing the prior year staff to pupil ratio at schools with a greater than 55% unduplicated versus schools with a less than 55% unduplicated, but all of our schools are over 55. And I do know that Rebecca Herrick will bring this up to our educational partners in February, and she will be back to the board at a later date. So moving on, looking at the changes from adoption to first interim, total revenue increased by $82.7 million, went from 234.8 to 317.5 million. And on the expenditure side, expenditures increased by 95.1 million. So at adoption, we had a positive $2 million. Now at first interim, we have deficit spending of $10.4 million. So that's a $12.3 million change. And so what that is made up of different things. So our LCFF revenue increase of 7.7, that's that 15% concentration grant add-on. Our federal increase of 51 million, that's some restricted carryover, and a large chunk is our COVID dollars. Other state revenue, 23 million. Large chunk, 21.7 million is a million of COVID dollars, and some restricted carryover, and also our increase in revenue in our lottery. Other local revenue increased 268,000. That's interest, our miscellaneous grants and donations. Our certificated and classified salaries increase of combined over $14.5 million. That's made up of our salary increases that were paid in October. We do budget those additional LCAP dollars and salaries, and then also COVID budget of 3.6 million. Our statutories, our employee benefits do increase as a result of the increase in salaries and budgeting the expenditures for the COVID dollars. Our books and supplies increased 24.6 million. That's made up of 2.5 million of restricted carryover and the rest COVID dollars. Services and other operating increase of 21.6. That's made up of $2.5 million of carryover and $1 million of carryover and $17.7 million of COVID. And lastly, our capital outlay increase of $30 million. That is COVID related. So revenues at a glance. We've had significant increases in revenue since LCFF was started. So back in 12-13, our revenue was 110 million. Now in 21-22, our revenue is 317 million. But of that 317 million, 70 million is one-time COVID dollars. And so you do see a steady increase ever since 12-13. And then back in 22-23 and 23-24, you're basically not having all those one-time COVID dollars. And so you start to see the graph continue up again. Looking at our expenditures, so as the district's LCFF revenue increases, in turn, the expenditures should also increase. So the LCFF dollars are meant for spending, and this chart does reflect that. Once again, in 21-22, we do budget all those $70 million of COVID dollars. So that's why that graph is very high at $327 million. Moving on to our multi-year assumptions. So these are assumptions we use to create our multi-year. We do remove one-time costs related to either one-time revenues or carryovers. Restricted programs are balanced and charge indirect cost if allowed. We do contribute 3% to our routine restricted maintenance account, and we do update our statutory rates. For first interim, the COLA stayed the same at 5.07%, and our funded regular ADA did stay the same at first interim. So looking at our multi-year projections, as I mentioned, in 21-22, we have a budgeted deficit spending of $10.4 million. That increases slightly in 22-23 to 10.7, and then increases a little more in 23-24 to $12.3 million. So a couple things to point out about the multi-year. So one-time COVID dollars are removed in 22-23. That's why you see a dip in revenue and a dip in our expenditures. The multi-year does have the salary schedule increases included in it. And then the revenue in 22-23 is finally feeling the effect of declining enrollment from 19-20. I mentioned there's a one-year hold harmless, but as a result of COVID, we've kind of got a few more years out of it. So if we didn't have that decline in enrollment, then our revenue in 22-23 would actually be $5.7 million higher. And in 23-24, it'd be almost $5 million higher. So our fund balance in excess of minimum reserve requirement, this is required, formed by the state here. Basically what's required is if you have an ending fund balance greater than our 3% required reserve requirement, you have to state why your reserve is higher than 3%. And so you have to substantiate that. So we need to substantiate for 21-22, 15.3 million, 22-23, almost 20 million, and then 11.8 million in 23-24. So down below are the reasons why are the substantiation, set asides for deficit spending in the two out years in 22-23 and 23-24, set aside for some PERS and STIRS rate increases, and set aside for cash flow, COVID, and other contingencies. So this slide looks at our enrollment. It does go back 7 years and does look forward 2 years. And you'll see we had a high in 17-18 of 17,122, and it just kind of oscillates down a little bit from there. You'll notice from 21-22 to 16,592, we do have an uptick in the next 2 years. And that's a result of the additional TK students. So looking ahead, this here comes directly from the 2022-23 fiscal outlook that the Legislative Analyst Office puts together, and it looks at the major budget and spending areas for the state. And I did want to highlight there's education in there. I do want to highlight the schools and community colleges. And what this shows is a comfortable growth in education funding over the next few years. The Assembly and the Senate have some opinions on the budget and the economy going forward. So early indicators shared by CSBA last week. The Assembly is to focus on delivering prosperity and strengthening the future. Their blueprint is once again delivering prosperity to ensure that the investments made in the 2021 budget are successful and strengthen the future with new and targeted investments. And now the Senate, they have three key values: sustain progress, strengthen equity, and build a more equitable economy. So those are the key areas that the Assembly and the Senate are looking at. So the next move is up to the governor with where we're going with this budget here. So what's next? Mr. Beach and I will attend the school services presentation on the governor's 22-23 state budget in the middle of January. And I will be back with you on the middle of March for the second interim report. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions?
I have one question. I noted that in one of those increases, it was for increased personnel to provide additional support services. Along with that money, is there a magic wand or a strategy for providing us that personnel?
Find people.
So Rebecca Harrigan, the Plan Alignment Department, is dialoguing with people about how to spend those dollars and to get those people. She is going to the educational partners in February to bring it to their attention. But yes, you're right. We've had trouble finding the people. Another thing with this 15% concentration grant add-on is if you have declining enrollment in the district, and that declining enrollment makes it so you need to cut a few positions, you can use those dollars to keep those positions intact.
Well, I'm just thinking about the new positions that we're going to need to be adding for that universal transitional kinder.
As are we all, Ms. Cordero. We are actively working together with instructional services, special education. I mean, all of the departments under instructional services are working together with HR to maximize our ability to recruit and retain, attract, recruit, and retain the highest quality employees at this time. It's a group effort.
I have a bit of concern as I read the CSBA updates daily that the state, and I can't now remember what the particular board is called on teacher credentialing, is basically suspending some of the requirements or delaying them. And that gives me pause to reflect on, okay, and what effect will that have on quality? So in a time when our focus is on quality teachers and improving teaching strategies to make them more effective, it doesn't quite seem like all the forces are working in that direction. Just an observation.
We will continue to find the highest qualified individuals, I promise you.
I appreciate that and I understand that. It just makes me wonder.
I completely understand and I agree. We want the best.
I'd say we've been on this flight before, you know, the legislature has money and, you know, says, here, go do. And I just think of CSR back in the day.
It kind of makes me want to go back to work.
Did you hear that, Ms. Beltran?
Yes, and if you ever taught TK, you can go right ahead.
No.
No? Okay,
No.
we'll talk later.
I have kinder experience, but no TK.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Brian, I have a question. In the areas where it shows that the area was not met, right? There's the little boxes that say met and not met. Is it typical for us to have so many of those not met X's there? And is that an area of concern?
So you're talking about form, the CI, the district certification.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I put the budget together and I do the criterion and standards, which is 26-ish pages. I have to go through that and explain variances and explain numerous things. And I think the only people that read the criterion standards are myself, Matt, and the county. But so the form CI gets a lot of the information from the criterion standards. It's just to answer your question, no, we don't have any concerns with the boxes that are checked yes and no for the certain requirements there. So yeah,
I'll add a little bit to that, Brian. With the criterion standards, it does provide a number of ways for Brian to break down the budget into small, significant, small little pieces of information that have a significant impact on the district, ways to really get perspective quickly on how we're doing fiscally. The county looks at those criterion standards as they're analyzing the conclusion that we reach as a part of this process, which is that we can have a positive cash flow and meet our fiscal obligations over the next 3 years. Where you see a not met, what the prompter is that now Brian has to explain for that specific piece in the criteria and standards, he has to provide an explanation. We're out of alignment on enrollment this year, and declining enrollment is a health indicator, a fiscal health indicator. If you're in declining enrollment, it can be a risk factor. So then Brian provides some kind of explanation, and this is just an example of why there's a declining enrollment, or explains why there might be a variance in that specific measurement type. And so what you have here on the form CI is it's almost like a table of contents for the school board or for anyone reviewing our financial statements to say, hey, I want to look at this one that says not met. They can flip to that in the criterion standards and get right to the explanation and make their own judgment if they're analyzing it. I agree with that explanation, or I'd like more information. And that happens from time to time. Also, Brian will get a call from the county office and they'll say, hey, you described this one situation. Did you think about and have you looked at? And Brian will provide them, additional information if that's what they're asking for. So that's what you're seeing there is it is like a roadmap for reviewing our financial statements. This not met thing is something important the state has identified. I need more information.
Brian, I think you had mentioned this a little bit because my follow-up question is who checks the accuracy of our work? So in other words, who makes sure, I think you mentioned the county, right? Might be one of those folks that make sure that our our ducks in a row, if you will. And so is that who checks our work to ensure our accuracy, or how can we be as confident as we are with these 3-year projections that we're in good shape?
So at the county office, we deal with a department that's SBAS, School Business Advisory Services, and every district in the county is assigned a DFA, a district financial advisor. And so there are a point person that we deal with. If I have a question or if they have a question, that's the person I deal with. So yes, there's a specific financial person that receives our first interim and goes through it, and they have their own requirements and forms that they got to fill out as they comb through our budget. And then I usually do get a call and just for some clarifying questions every interim and every budget, and I just answer those questions. And then they do generate a letter that they send to the district that says, hey, I agree with you, or I don't agree. And we've never gotten the I don't agree with you. So we've always got I agree with how you present your budget. And they like to point out a few things that we might need to consider. But so yes,
And
to answer your
just for
question, it is reviewed.
And that letter doesn't just go to Brian. I get a copy, and the board president gets a copy as well. In fact, thank you, Mr. Valencia. It reminded me that I had a notification from the county on our the approval ratification of our contracts that we were able to meet those financial obligations as well. So there is a very tight coupling between the awesome work that our folks do here and the county. I wouldn't say really checking our math because our math's pretty solid. It's more using Matt and Brian's teams as models for other districts in the county.
Brian, there's you reflected the large number of COVID dollars that we have for this year, and those are not carried over into next year. And so that kind of gives us not exactly the same as some of the previous stuff where we had to use it for certain things, certain prescripted time frame, but it doesn't carry over. Are those some of those funds earmarked, or will we, if we don't spend them or allocate them, will they then be there? We just don't get them? How does that work?
So I understand your question. So when I say carryover, so with these COVID dollars, we have $70 million left to spend. We do budget all 70 million in that year. And so when I say there's no carryover, that means we're not going to budget that $70 million again next year because we're budgeting it this year to spend. But
okay,
there are timelines of different timelines for the literally 16 different buckets of dollars.
Right.
Some had to be spent at the end of last year. Some need to be spent by September 22 and 23 and 24. So yeah, good memory. At unaudited actuals of 45-day budget revision, I showed you an analysis of when all these buckets need to be spent. So that's still the case.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I second.
Ms. Cordero moves, Ms. Flores seconds. Roll call?
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero, Mr. Lara.
Aye. Motion passed. Item C, award of bid number 5205 Bonita Elementary School Sewer Line and Storm Drain Project. Mr. Beecher.
Thank you very much, President Lara. We bring to you this item for a project coming up here at Bonita School related to their storm drain system. You can see that we have 6 bidders here. The numbers that we received from them do span several $60,000 between them, which is a pretty sizable number.
Yeah.
But there's a really good cluster around the bottom end, right? So we have a low bidder at 91.9. The next low bidder is 96, and the next is 114. So we do feel like, the numbers are pretty solid. And, a lot of times, especially right now, you can understand that many times the cost difference may have as much to do with their work schedule like how many projects they're already tied up on
Mhm.
than what the work really would cost under normal circumstances. And I really do hope that eventually we start doing business under normal circumstances, but I think we're still a ways away.
Mhm.
So I'm really pleased with this this outcome. You can read in the item, we went through our regular process as far as making sure that we post, that we get people involved, that we have a job walk, that people have the opportunity to ask questions. And anytime there's questions during a bid process, the question is shared with everyone and the answer is shared with everyone, because again, we have to create that level playing field. A project like this wouldn't work as a cooperative purchasing agreement, Mr. Holland said, as you asked earlier, because that cooperative agreement is about uniform. What does everyone need that everyone needs to buy? This is a specific thing, so we have to get a specific bid, and that's why we approached it in this way. Already, Mr. Cavazos and his team have met with the contractor today, this afternoon, to do kind of a post bid, which is part of our process, to walk them through their bid, walk them through their amount, walk them again through the project to make sure they understand exactly what the requirements are, what they're signing their contract for, to do our best to eliminate surprises. Always when you're dealing with construction, as soon as you start digging into anything, you dig into a wall, you dig into the ground, whatever it is, you're going to find something you didn't expect. And there's a process for that also. But the stuff that you can eliminate in advance makes the whole process go smoother. So with all of that being said, I do request the board's consideration of approving the award to Hartzell General Engineering and Contracting for $91,900 so they can get this work underway.
Is this all starting over Christmas break?
I want to say that's the case. I do have information. Normally, you'd be pleased with Ms. McKnight's presentation. She is under the weather, so she's not with you tonight. So I told her that you would tolerate my presence tonight, and I appreciate your grace. But let me see if they put a start date in my description for me. I don't see it in here, so I don't want to mix one up. But let me get a quick project description from Javier, and I can share it in the update this week.
Okay.
Now, the storm drain, is that in the parking lot or in the school structure?
That's what I was going to ask. What is the area that will be most disrupted?
I have a feeling, just based on my experience at the campus, their issue is the transition between the parking lot and the campus itself.
Okay.
So if I'm thinking about where this goes, it's going to be right there.
Okay.
But again, I want to get definite information for you so that we are clear on where this is going to happen. And again, I'm sure Javier and his team have identified the right solution. But I'll get a better description for you.
All right. Thank you.
Did Linda have something?
It was the same one as Rick.
Okay.
I'll
So
move
would-
to approve the award of a contract for bid number 5205 Bonita Elementary School Sewer Line and Storm Drain Project to Hartzell General Engineering Contractor Incorporated in the amount of $91,900 upon presentation of bonds.
I second.
Been moved by Mr. Hollingshead, second by Mrs. Flores. Roll call.
Mr. Hollingshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 18D, Resolution 21-11, Certification of Teacher Assignments. Ms. Beltran.
Thank you and good evening. Tonight I bring, as required, a resolution that is where it states that I am confirming that everybody has the proper credentials and requirements to teach what they are assigned. However, we do have two individuals for the junior high, where we need to bring this resolution to you for certification of teacher assignments. And we are asking the governing board to authorize 2 junior high teachers to teach in the indicated subject areas for the 21-22 school year. We have currently a science teacher who is about to go out on the second half of their school year under the reduced work share program, and that is requiring us to bring in a science teacher. Blaga Nichols is a recent graduate with a multiple subject and sufficient credits in science to teach at the junior high. And then Caleb Gonzalez is a current teacher in one of our junior highs, and he is being asked to teach career exploration. And so we need certification and authorization from the Board of Trustees.
I'll move that we approve resolution.
Mr. Valencia?
Yeah, so something that I noticed was it talked about career exploration as the position. And I'm wondering if all of our junior highs have that class available. Because if so, I definitely would like to see more of things like that, right? Oftentimes our young people struggle to find the relevance of why they're studying so hard. And so I'm really happy to see that one of the positions is a career exploration position. So I'm just wondering, is that available at all of our junior high schools?
Mr. Valencia, without looking at the master schedules right now, I do, however, believe that all of them have the ability to offer that as a section. And I can get back to you in the board update as well as to where it currently is being offered. It isn't
additionally part of our college and career readiness plan that the team's been working on for a couple of years in partnership with Hatching's results, in partnership with our school counselors at the junior high, our teachers, and with the high school. We've been, again, doing that work for a couple of years. Career exploration is a part of that. And again, you're always welcome to come and hear about the college and career ready plan that is very extensive, that really digs into all of these pieces. I think you'd be very interested in hearing more about it. And we're happy to do that with you.
And that was part of the overview that was given by Teaching and Learning on the 16th of November. We invited the board to attend those sessions. And also it's what Ms. Milhorn was referring to in her comments about the reformatting the junior high schedules to expand that opportunity for electives. And so again, this piece is just relative to this specific assignment.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I do. I will move that the Board of Education approve resolution number 21-11, certification of teacher assignments as presented.
I'll second.
Ms. Cordero moves, Mr. Valencia seconds. Roll call?
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. Motion passes. 18E, discuss and approve classified job descriptions. Ms. Beltran.
Thank you very much. In your packet, you have 15 job descriptions. However, at this time, I am pulling the job description with the name change of Technology Support Technician 3 to bring back at a later time. So I am presenting you with 14 classified job descriptions at this time. Several of them are revised bargaining unit job descriptions. And then there are 3 new bargaining unit job descriptions, specifically the data analysis for assessment and accountability, a district community liaison, and a student information and reporting specialist for special education. Those are the 3 new positions. And then there are 11 revised bargaining unit job descriptions, which have been presented to you. And again, we will bring, if you look at the tentative agreement sheet that numbers them 1L, we will bring back the Technology Support Technician 3 at a later time. Are there any questions about any of the proposed job descriptions?
Yes, Mr. Valencia.
Yeah, Ms. Beltran, one of the things that as a board we've been emphasizing is the importance of having bilingual or multilingual staff. And so I'm just wondering if you can share with us a little bit about why that might not have been included with the experience for the positions.
Yes, that is a discussion that was made and had with the negotiations team for CSEA, and it will be on future agendas when, because right now we are in the process of updating many of our classified job descriptions, and they will all have the similar format, or will have the same format that you are being presented with these 14 job descriptions at this time. These, along with personal qualities, will be a topic of conversation later with the negotiations team.
Thank you for that. I mean, I know today we just heard from one of our parent leaders, Mr. Lozano, right? The importance of having, staff, right, who understand the language, right, and the culture, right, of our parents, of our students. And so I know that from speaking to Mr. Ontiveros that some of these positions hadn't been updated, right, in a long time. So I just want to make sure that we're keeping up with the times, right, and making sure that we're meeting the needs of our families and of our students. And so I look forward to continuing to hear more about that, on how that goes for innovation.
Thank you, Mr. Valencia. Yes, it is definitely a conversation piece, and also be fair, whether it's on the job description or not, it is a quality that we do look for with all of our applicants.
And a follow-up question that I have, Ms. Beltran, is how competitive are our positions? Sometimes I hear the argument that part of the reason why we have a hard time filling positions, not just in our district, but in general, is because maybe our compensation isn't as competitive as it could be. And so how do we go about comparing our pay? Do we look at districts with similar size? Do we look at areas with similar cost of living? So how can we be confident that our compensation is just for these positions?
Mr. Valencia, we do, thank you for this question. We do a study of other comparable salaries in the area, but I'm going to ask at this time if Mr. Beecher does not mind that he can address this, because this is something we're definitely on top of, and we are very competitive.
You know what, I'm going to interrupt Matt, because we had a comment from the leadership of the association today. I don't want to get into, they claim that they are going to declare impasse. I think it's inappropriate for us to have this conversation at that time when it's a topic of contention in this setting. If you'd like to sit down with HR and go through, I mean, the reality is those are negotiated positions. We cannot unilaterally do those things. We got to do them in conjunction. And because of that announcement of impasse tonight, I think it'd be imprudent at this time to have this conversation in a public meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Ontiveros. My apologies.
Any other questions?
Well, I would only add for Mr. Valencia that I think, we made that, declared that as part of what we're about, right?
I'm not arguing the valid.
No, I'm just telling Mr. Valencia, I'm just saying we've made the commitment to that as a district. So I think that's understood. Hopefully that's understood, and that'll become more and more of an understood as people apply for jobs. And yeah, we'll be able to list it in a technical aspect or a technical sense, but obviously, like with community liaisons and those things, it's going to be something that is going to be invaluable. But I think that's one of the reasons that we did the bylaw instead of doing a resolution, right? Is that we're committed to that. So hopefully that'll continue to be reflected within the community.
Similar separate issue. As I was going through the position, Ms. Beltran, one of the positions that stood out to me was the position of the district community liaison. When I looked at the responsibilities, right, in terms of how much they interface with the community, I was blown away, right, with how critical they are in terms of their connections, right, with our families, with our students. They're interpreting, they're translating. They have to be basically like 20 different staff members in one, right? And so one of the things that I just want to put out there is, I'm not sure what exactly what the number is for their pay scale, right? But I'm definitely open to, given all those responsibilities, that pay scale being increased by a little bit, because it does seem like one of those positions that merit, right? Their pay. So just putting that out there.
I can tell you that the district community liaison's pay scale range was increased from community liaisons at the site.
I think I did notice, right, that there was some increase. And was it only because of increase in days of work or just the recognition of the difficulty of the work?
It was in response to the work that is being asked of specifically district community liaisons.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time?
Do we have a motion?
Second?
Ms. Flores moves, Mr. Hollingshead seconds. Roll call?
Mr. Hollingshead?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores?
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero?
Aye.
Mr. Lara?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 18F, 2022-23 and 2023-24 school calendar. Ms. Beltran.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lara. Following the language of the collective bargaining agreement and the process both with the teaching association and consultation with the classified association, two samples of a board of calendars for the 22-23, 23-24 school year were provided to our certificated members, and option A was what was selected. I do want to note that at this time, we bring this forward for your approval so that we can establish a beginning and end date to the school year calendars, as that is important information to start with. But please know that we will bring back an update to include all remaining CSEA holidays throughout the year, as well as other important dates such as reporting periods, elementary and junior high conference periods, and elementary minimum days.
Minimum days, yeah.
Ms. Beltran, couple things. One, those different things will have to be moved around because we're continuing to chase a religious holiday in Easter. I understand that the choice was made to do that, but we've been discussing this change for years. And unfortunately, this is a negotiated item because the high school district is willing to follow our lead and would like to change to a spring break that is fixed. It also makes a lot of sense with the things that you just talked about. If we're making calendars year after year, then we can anticipate where those things will fall, not have to change them annually. And so I'm pretty frustrated by that. So I don't know what rationale was given for continuing the current process or the current calendar and that moving around of that break. And I don't know why it's continued for also for 2 years and why we're not, why we're trying to have a 2-year calendar. As you can see, it's moved from 1 week to another, and it's been as late April. So it's moved from 1 week in April to another week in April between the 2 years, and as recently as 2 years ago, it was at the end of April, which would leave very little time at the end of the year. And so we're talking about social emotional problem things and teachers being burned out as we come into Thanksgiving annually. The prospects of some districts even talking about having a fall break that would precede that. And here we go following stuff around and making adjustments every year because we're chasing after a holiday. So I'm going to respectfully say that I don't think the effort to convey that information was either given fully or accepted and listened to fully. And Mr. Segura asked to meet in this capacity, and so I didn't do that because it's a negotiated item. And so in the future, if he asks to meet, because there's no longer a committee with a board member on it, or that I don't have any interface with that, then I'll do that to make sure that gets conveyed. But if it's 2 years, then that's a non-starter.
All right, I do want to let you know that we did create a calendar that had a fixed March week. And it was taken to the association as they are the ones who vote on it. And they selected option A. And so at this time, I take your lead as a Board of Trustees.
Ms. Beltran, can you describe the process in terms of creating the school calendar? And to what extent are our parents a part of that process? And if they are or aren't a part of that process, what concerns, if any, have our parents raised around the school calendar?
I am not aware of any parent concerns raised surrounding the school calendar. The process is that the district meets with the association. We also put in language in the contract that the association would communicate with the classified association. Classified association does not vote on it, but they had input. We shared it with the CSEA leadership, who shared it with their members, both options. Mr. Beecher and I met a few times, several times with Mr. Segura. We kept, most of the dates are very similar. We proposed the March fixed spring date, and we made sure that the calendars looked exactly the same, with the exception of one said A, the other said B. And then it went out to the association. They took about a week to vote on it. I have the results. Over 580, I want to say, but I don't memorize numbers, so give me one moment, please.
Like 4589.
There were 575 that voted altogether. One abstained. Of the 575, 93.2%, which is 535 members, voted for calendar A. And 39 of the 575, which is 6.8%, voted for calendar B. About a little over 300 abstained from participating at all. But this is the process that's outlined in the collective bargaining agreement, but has also been a practice in the district.
Thank you for that clarification. It does sound like I'm happy to hear that our classified staff, right, that our certificated staff have a voice in the process. But I do feel like our parents, right, might potentially be severely overlooked. And so I would like to figure out a way to involve our families, right, who send their children to us, right, every day, because it impacts them just as much, if not more, as our staff. So I would love to continue to have a conversation with our district, with our, to see how we can involve our parents in that process as well.
And I think to reference John's point earlier, the high school district's willing to follow our lead. I think if we were to do that collaboratively, because I think we'd be happy to follow the high school district's lead if they had a better rationale for making the change. But so maybe we can combine some of those efforts and get some parental input on both sides. Mr. Navarrete mentioned earlier, Mr. Farias is on the parent board at Pioneer and one of our junior highs. So we've got some folks that maybe we can utilize to build a better feedback loop, because I'm not sure, I'm not familiar with the high school calendar process, but are you familiar with the feedback that's, so what kind of feedback do they get from parents on that calendar there?
I don't know that they get feedback from parents because it's not a negotiated item, and parents when they're spring break days.
But
they make their plans of everything.
Yeah.
And I know from as a track coach, that can be, and I'm not, it's not as the coach, obviously it's frustrating, and teachers from the teachers.
Aspects, they have to change their calendars annually. So from a logistics standpoint in an administrative fashion, that's frustrating, but it's also frustrating for the parents because they don't know when to anticipate things are going to happen on an annual basis in the spring.
Other than knowing when Easter is.
Other than knowing that they have to check what the moon is and when the couple of days fall.
And so what I'm hearing is there is no feedback gathered from parents in the high school district about trying to build a.
No, like I said, as a coach, I just hear what they come back to me with as,
Okay.
you know, oh, this is the week it is, and I didn't have anything planned, or I did.
That is certainly something we can pursue. At this point, this item's in front of the board, whatever's the board's pleasure. If you'd like to take 1, 2, 0, you know, it's as again, I get a little frustrated when the high school district says, yeah, we're willing to change if you guys will do the work. Right.
Okay, so yeah, we've got the bigger district, but we share the families.
No, and that's where we were to get some parent input around both, so that there was
right
on both sides. I mean, you know, 5 years ago we were on totally different calendars. You know, we were taking 5 weeks at Christmas, and the high school district was taking 4 or 3 or whatever it was, right? And so we had kids that weren't going to high school because they were staying home to watch their siblings,
right?
Which is a reality. And so, you know, if we can continue to leverage that and build a design, I think it's worth pursuing.
Maybe we could get feedback as to why we need to follow Easter. Same thing, right? I mean, that's the same rationale.
I've got a pretty good idea because I grew up to school here in the 60s, and guess when we had spring break?
Yeah, I grew up back east, and nobody had it. So I mean, that's all a matter of perspective.
I know that in the Ventura County it
Mr.
occurs.
Valencia last night in the Inland Empire where I came from, we changed to fixed spring break 25 years ago. So it's a little odd that we still, you know, follow the, you know, that pattern that's by whatever the second full moon after
Sure.
the Epiphany.
Well, and see, one of my interests would be in equalizing the grading periods.
Exactly, that's what I was
It's not just it's a student-driven decision.
So, I mean, if we start asking parents, they'd probably really like us to have their kids in school every single day.
Exactly.
Regardless of holidays.
That's a spring break, forget that.
I mean, you know, the reality is, you know, holidays are for government employees and people like teachers. I mean, if you work in the health field or are a police officer or any other thing, it doesn't matter. You may get paid a little bit more, but if it's your day to work, it's your day to work. So, you know, there are a lot of things that can affect calendar, but, you know, convenience to parents probably isn't going to be my top priority.
So I wait to hear your decision, please.
So if I understood you correctly, Ms. Beltran, you indicated that at this point, the primary need is to approve the beginning date for school and the ending date that other like reporting periods and minimum days and things such as that would follow. So there would be an opportunity if the situation arose to amend when spring break could be.
I would,
You're gonna have to go back to the table.
yeah. But
if the
I wouldn't approve, I mean, we know when more or less.
If the high school district were to approve a calendar that had a break in March, my guess is that it would go back to the table.
As our collective bargaining agreement has the association negotiating the date, I don't know that they would agree with that and with that. So I'm just.
Or we could agree on a calendar for a year instead of 2.
And that is also what you can do.
22, 23? Is what you're gonna be going to? Yeah. And then going back to the table and trying to line with the high school district. Yeah. That's my, that would be, I think that would be probably the strongest case.
I will say I'm curious what the high school district will do because I've been approached by Kevin Platt before that they will coordinate with us. So I'm curious if.
And that's the person to whom I was referencing as well as their board. Are in favor of that.
You know, their younger siblings are in our district, while the others are the high school, so. Yeah.
And again, to Mr. Valencia's point, we can certainly solicit more input on when that fixed date might be, rather than kind of going, okay, well, let's make it at the end of March because that seems most appropriate, or that was our best guess at the time.
We chose the third week of March.
Okay, sorry, third week of March.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, just for like, and again, to Ms. Flores and Ms. Cordero's point, what was best for students and teachers for equitable teaching terms.
Right. Ms. Beltran, do we have to agree to both calendars? Is that part of the agreement, or we can choose just the one?
I believe as a board
you can.
I believe as a board you can choose to approve one with direction as to how we address the next one.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'll move to approve the annual calendar for the year 2022 and 2023 as presented, to be, and 23, 24 to be discussed, and attempts made to coordinate with high school district and input on the possibility of a fixed spring break with students and teachers' input in mind and their success. How's that? Parents.
If I could make a recommendation, I think what you're moving to approve is just 2023 calendar.
Yeah.
I think the rest of that, at this point, the board is taking action.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just kind of including rationalization.
Take it out.
Yeah.
All right.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Holland, Ms. Forrest. Roll call.
Mr. Hollingshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. Motion passes to approve the 2022-23 school year.
Calendar.
Ms. Beltran, did you say the middle of March is when we have the semester break, or the third week in March for grades, or was that just an idea for when to?
We haven't hammered that out yet, but.
Oh, okay. I just thought you might have it. Okay.
No, what we did was we proposed the third week of March because
That's what I mean, on your
holidays
okay.
in February.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you.
I think if you're working on a traditional quarter system, that third week in March is when the third quarter ends before the fourth quarter begins.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking in my mind, but I thought maybe that was why they went with it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Item G, appointment of the interim superintendent and approval of contract terms for interim superintendent. Mr. Ontiveros.
Yes, at the at the previous board meeting, the board had identified Matthew Beecher to serve as interim superintendent during the period of transition in which the superintendent search will be conducted. And so a contract for that interim superintendent position has been generated, has been shared. And Mrs. Cordero, I believe, has the specifics to propose for the material items relevant within the contract.
Okay. I move to appoint Matt Beecher as interim superintendent of the district effective January 1, 2022, and continuing until a superintendent is selected and hired by the board. And further move that Mr. Beecher will retain his powers and duties as Deputy Superintendent for Business Services after January 1, 2022, and that Mr. Beecher will be entitled to return to his position as Deputy Superintendent for Business Services under the terms of his existing Deputy Superintendent contract when a new superintendent takes office. I further move that in return for carrying out the duties of interim superintendent and as Deputy Superintendent of Business Services, that Mr. Beecher will be paid a salary based on Step 1, Range 2 of the interim superintendent salary schedule with additional compensation, benefits, and terms as set forth in a material term sheet publicly disclosed in open session. I further move pursuant to Education Code Section 35029 to waive any and all California credential requirements for Mr. Beecher so that he can serve as interim superintendent effective January 1, 2022 for so long as he serves as interim superintendent.
Do I have a second? Second.
Second?
Ms. Cordero moves, Mr. Holland has second. Roll call?
Mr. Hollingshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. And motion passes that the Board of Education appoints an interim superintendent with all the powers and duties of the superintendent effective January 1st and continuing for an indefinite period, and that the board approve the compensation and other material terms of the employment contract for the interim superintendent and authorize the board president to execute the contract with the interim superintendent containing the approved material and terms as presented. Motion passes.
And thank you, Matt, for bringing it on.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Item D, discussion 19A. First reading of board policy, Mr. Ontivero.
Can you all see my screen? So, so what I'm bringing forward tonight is first reading of some specific board policies and administrative regulations around uniform complaint procedures, education for English learners, and parent involvement. What I attached to the agenda was a copy of our current policy and then the CSBA model policy. And what I'm going to share is kind of the markup between the two. So I'm going to read through those six. I anticipate we'll be out of here by about 11:30. No, I'm joking. Okay. I want to just go over some of the fundamental changes, and there's a couple of reasons for doing this. So in terms of setting a context, is really getting more than one bird with a stone. Number one is the board policy update that we have been engaged in. And again, I want to give Kristen credit. She's been sitting on that nest of policy with the transition to the electronic format. At the November 10th meeting, we brought a number of those title changes. A couple of them are referenced in these policies, so there's still more to come. These policies are relevant at this point in time because we're undergoing a federal program monitoring site visit in April. And it's not just about the site visit, it's about all the preparation. And so Rebecca Herrick and Michelle Soratis in the Plan Alignment Department have really been coordinating the collection of all the evidence that's required. And I'm just going to quickly share, this is the state web page on compliance monitoring. And so what a federal program monitoring process entails is an examination of whether or not we're meeting all the requirements that are attached to the resources that are allocated. And specifically for us, the programs that are being monitored are compensatory ed, early learning, English learners, expanded learning, school support and improvement, and this uniform complaint procedure. So it's not just about policy, it's really about what's the practice that's emanated from that policy. And I go back to last January, we adopted for the first time a policy around diversity, equity, and inclusion that really launched that work. These are programs that we have maintained in the district for decades, and the criteria changes. Thus, the cycle of federal program monitoring, it's generally a 4-year cycle where there's a come in and it's how are you maintaining fidelity to the intention of the design of the programs. And so this resource talks about all the different elements that go into that. Our teams have been working diligently since about September. We got notified, I think it was in July, that we were subject to program monitoring. They're really working collecting that data. And so I want to go just through briefly, and then what I'll do in the update this week is I didn't want to send you that markup because it gets difficult to read. I just want to I'll share it with you tonight and then send it with the update. So when we bring it back for a second reading, you'll have had the opportunity to connect the gap that exists between our current and what that model policy is. With the idea really being to get to program alignment, right? We've been talking about systemness since the time I've been here, really trying to make sure that all of those pieces leverage the resources of each other, that they're building on one another, not building separately. And that's the kind of the theme. Again, I'm just going to speed read, do the Evelyn Wood version of these tonight, because it is already, I can't even see that clock, it's 9 o'clock already. Or is that later than that? That one says 3:20. Oh, we got all kinds of time. 3:20. And so, yeah, you go back in time. And so there are some other policies, but they really get launched by these. These are kind of the big bites in the apple. And so the first is this board policy 1312.3, which refers to uniform complaint procedures. We have updated this fairly recently. I believe 2018 was the last time, because there were some new criteria that were identified in federal legislation. I believe it was specific to targeted demographic groups and specific behaviors, including bullying, that were specifically called out. And there have been some changes since that are much more significant than that. So again, I'm going to do this really quickly. If you have a question, feel free to hold up a hand. So we reviewed this policy in April of 2018. This entails, the way I've done this markup, married those two, is anything that is new language is in italics. Anything that is the existing language that is no longer applicable to the standard has been struck through. So you see in that paragraph, and I have my sound up. Oh. Maybe I swallowed my microphone. How's that? Is that better? Okay. That's probably because I'm wearing this doggone mask. And so you'll see that in that first paragraph, there's just a subtle change. previously it was the district is primary responsible for complying with all the applicable state and federal laws. The nuance in this, and it gets spelled out as I kind of go down through, is that the district has primary responsibility to ensure compliance. And when we look at the complaint subject to UCP, this is really a specific criteria that often gets overutilized because it's called a uniform complaint procedure. And it's not uniform. It has historically been applied to specific programs that fall under federal program. We've often used it as a catch-all, and it hasn't really been the right tool to follow up. And so this is a pretty significant change. As you see, this part that is struck through. Oh, I want to note that when we adopted this, the CF and the number, that's a legal term for a cross-reference to another policy. That is in the CSBA model just for awareness. It's not necessarily intended to be utilized as part of the policy. So I have struck through those. It's just instructive in the manual maintenance to help individuals like Kristen, who will be assuming responsibility for all these, to really make sure that those pieces are interconnected. And so we had it when we adopted this back in 2018. We included all those references. I have struck them out in the policies that we'll go through. And so, whereas before there was this long paragraph that talked about all the different applicable areas, adult ed, after school education, migrant education, CTE, all the way through, they were all just kind of glommed together into one comprehensive statement. This has become more simplistic, and I'll point out the reason in a minute. And it talks about the application of the UCP shall fall under these distinct categories. Okay, so this is designed to be more instructive, again, around that nuance change of the responsibility to ensuring compliance and not just be a tool for following up on a complaint. So it's more about the uniformity of the application of program, less about after the fact. And so most of these elements are referenced in that strike through paragraph. What's expanded here is this paragraph 10, discrimination, harassment, intimidation, bullying, along all these different criteria. And these are the things that have been added over the last several years. I believe gender expression or genetic information was the most recent addition of a demographic to be included that fell under uniform complaint. And so it lists all of these things. And so anything that falls outside of that occurs that there is a concern about or a lack of follow through on would not fall under uniform complaint. So it's very specific to these things. And so it makes it just more of a listing. And then this next paragraph where my cursor is the change. And this is brand new, this concept of alternative dispute resolution. Depending on the allegations, can offer a process for resolving a complaint. So it's not just filing a complaint, it's how do we fix it? How do we ensure that there's a quicker turnaround? And you'll see in the administrative regulation, a lot of the timelines that were more expansive have been reduced as well, because it's just like what we do in schools. If you have an issue, address it with the person with whom you have an issue. Don't go through the bureaucracy, which is really what this change in design is really meant to elicit, to get quicker to resolution and not just resolution of putting it behind us, but making sure that we're following through on the intentionality of the programs. So it references this idea of alternative dispute resolution. Has been launched over the last decade or so in the realm of special education, right? Instead of following through on the whole legal filing with the state, let's see if we can't resolve things sooner. And so that's really the concept that has driven much of this change. In that process, the district shall protect all complainants from retaliation. That's new language. When an allegation that is not subject to UCP is included in a UCP complaint, the district shall refer the non-UCP allocation to the appropriate staff. So it's not just, well, this doesn't fall under the uniform guidelines. This is really more appropriate. And so it is. Again, it's that element of an alternate resolution. And these are things that are the same, maintaining a record of complaints, the actions that occur, things of that nature. And then there are specifics to non-uniform complaint procedures. So these are the things that shall not be subject to UCP, but shall be investigated and resolved by the specified agency or through an alternative process. And this goes back to assuming responsibility for compliance. That's kind of the overarching umbrella under which all this is. It's not just about, are we meeting the specifics of the identified program? Are we assuming responsibility for resolution? And so, so this has all been reworded. So it's any complaint alleging employment discrimination, because there's a whole set of laws, regulations, agencies for whom, you know, the Fair Employment and Housing Administration is really the, you know, or EEOC are venues for resolving those issues. Any complaint alleging child abuse, that's a social service issue. We need to make sure that that gets in the right place. Complaint, health and safety violations by child development goes to social services, right? So it's taken the situation to the venue for most immediate action. And so this is, there's food service, you know, all the number of things. So it just has kind of reoriented that from a catch-all to here's what this is meant to address. Here's what it's not meant to address. But in the event that you have those issues, here's where you need to go. So it's become more instructive, less compliance, more instructive in resolution. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of the policy itself. That same concept is reinforced in the administrative regulation, which is really, this is how you do this. This is kind of the policy kind of defines the parameters, the specifics for operationalizing it falls into this uniform complaint process. So in identifying the individual, you know, who's responsible, that doesn't change. It's still, all those are evaluated at one level, and for us, it's the Director of People Personnel Services. But this added, in italics, the second paragraph really relays that concept under the board policy. The district designates the individuals, positions, or units identified below as are responsible for receiving, coordinating, and investigating. And previously it was, you just investigate. Right, so it goes into one hole. It's, you know, kind of like the, nobody here has family works at the DMV, right? Right, it's kind of like that. You know, you go stand in line at the DMV. This is really let's, and it's more fitting with the whole RTI concept. You know, that cost that with the coordination of service team concept that we really tried to employ. How do we get people in the right place to begin the process? So most of this is the same in terms of, you know, the requirements of making sure that there is that we're following the right process, and then these notifications have some nuances. In addition to having things posted, that individual who's responsible shall provide written notification of the UCP to students, employees, parents, guardians of students, advisory committee members, because something that's new that's under all that falls under these umbrellas now, you'll see through all these policies, there's a reference to LCAP, which wasn't there before because of that advisory component. And so again, kind of the overarching principle is laid out in the beginning rather than being specific and prescriptive about you have to have it posted to school. You also have to do outreach to individuals that may potentially be impacted. And then these same concepts that are struck through here kind of get reoriented in how the policy is articulated. So this is what the notice shall include. That the district is primarily responsible for compliance, under all those elements that fall under UCP, under complaint subject to UCP, in the accompanying board policy. So again, they're linked. So it includes the title, the statement of UCP must be filed no later than 1 year. A statement that a UCP complaint alleging unlawful discrimination, and what it said in the previous list release of these policies, it wasn't articulated discrimination, harassment, intimidation, or bullying. Those all were kind of grouped under the idea of discrimination. You know, it was a broad category. Now it's more specific, so that there is some more specific follow through in each of those instances. This reference to non-requirement for fees, right? That, you know, for some districts, even within the last 10 years, have had a hard time breaking that cycle. You know, here we're pretty religious about making sure that our kids are getting the stuff they need, right? Without any holdup because of fees being charged. You know what, now it's really about everything. I mean, it used to be there were specifics you could do. There were kind of carve outs. Now it's just, unless the only real, you know, the only condition is if you're going to own it, like high schools, right? You do the package with the yearbook and your gown, your graduation gown is included. You get to keep it, right? But if you don't want to keep it, can't charge you, because I was superintendent in a district where we used to make kids rent a gown, right? You pay, well, as parents, a lot of us did it, right? Shelled out the $50 for the kid to wear the gown for an hour and a half. Well, that concept is no longer permissible under law. Hasn't been for a long time, and now it's just kind of ensuring compliance is that it's our responsibility to ensure compliance, not just say, hey, we're not doing that. We've got to do a little more outreach. So yeah, it's all those elements, Ricardo. These guidelines are the same, even though this is in italics. This verbiage is mostly the same. It's just been reoriented into a more logical flow around the broader concept of investigation. And then it talks about the filing of a complaint. And there are some changes here. Talks about timelines in this point 3, a UCP complaint, except for a complaint alleging unlawful discrimination, harassment, intimidation, or bullying, shall be filed no later than 1 year from the date the allegation occurred. For complaints related to the LCAP, so this LCAP now falls under this category, the date of the alleged violation is the date when the county superintendent of schools approves the LCAP. So it extends that timeline. And so, again, ensuring compliance, the county's responsibility in evaluating LCAPs is just to make sure, not to say you can't do or not do that action or service you want. It's ensuring that we have followed the spirit and the design of the law that's set out. And then these are all have been modified. And if you look at under 5, specifically to that complaint, because it said except for those complaints alleging unlawful discrimination, harassment, intimidation, or bullying. The time for filing may be extended up to 90 days by the superintendent designee by good cause under written request by the complainant, sending forth a reason for extension. Because lots of times you'll get people that are reluctant or don't know who to go to. And so it provides an outlet for an individual to not say, oh, your time's up. It gives an extra time period. Under number 6, the compliance officer shall pursue an investigation as appropriate depending on the specificity and reliability of the information provided. So it really talks about the degree to which an individual must respond. And then this last part breaks out again those specific elements. Discrimination used to just be a broad category. Now it's these specifics: harassment, intimidation, or bullying. And this refers to when the complainant requests confidentiality, the officer shall inform the complainant that the request may limit the district's ability to investigate conduct and to take necessary action. Because it's difficult when someone says, I don't want you to say anything, to do a thorough investigation. So you got to be upfront and transparent with the individual in that case. And then this is something that's new, this whole concept of mediation, and it goes to the concept of alternative dispute resolution. It used to be you investigate, you make a report. There is an opportunity that the compliance officer can discuss what all the parties use in mediation. How would you feel like sitting down and seeing if we can't resolve this? So that's that alternative dispute resolution built into the process. But it's got to be within 3 days of receiving the complaint. It can't be 20 days later and thinking about if something is ongoing, saying, hey, how about if let's sit down and see if we can resolve this? It's got to be an immediate offer. If the mediation process does not resolve the problem within the parameters of law, the compliance officer shall proceed. So there's a kind of a checkpoint built in there. And then this is specific to the investigation of a complaint. Previously, it was within 20 days, 20 business days after receiving the complaint, the officer shall begin. Now it's within 10. And within that first 3 is this offer of mediation, if we're going to follow up the mediation. The rest of this language is pretty similar, except for the definition, again, under discrimination. This in italics, this next to last paragraph talks about when you're investigating, if there's an investigation being made by an investigator outside of the district through that alternative dispute resolution or through that, that referral type of process, that if the district refuses to cooperate or provide evidence, then the investigation may result in a finding based on whatever evidence has been collected. And then what was previously all a report of findings now is really a timeline for the investigation report, because not all of these are going to be resolved locally. They may go to other agencies if they fall into those other broad categories. So the timelines are pretty much the same. The final decision is made within 60 days. And what we have always had in our policy, and the recommendation is to maintain, in our regulation, is that there is a process to appeal to the board if there's not satisfaction with the result of findings. And then the investigation report is separate from what was previously the report of findings. It's a report of the investigation, and that's relevant because there may be a determination that it goes on to some other agency. And so it's not findings, it's here's what we found. And so these are a lot of the same criteria that is struck through. It's just reorganized around that concept of a report of findings. And it includes the process. It includes these, where it says corrective actions. These have always been in policy. These could be potential outcomes: counseling, academic support, health services, and again, depending on the circumstances. And then I think there's one more, yeah. And these are new additions. When a complaint is found to have merit, an appropriate remedy shall be provided to the complainant or other affected person. And again, it's not just we were compliant or not. Here's how we're going to resolve this issue going forward and ensure that there's true resolution to what transpired. And then there's process for appeals to the Department of Education. And again, this is struck through, it's kind of restated around the process and talks about the specifics under UCP that in order for the state, the CDE to consider a complaint, has to call out these specific things. And then in order to submit that, has to include these things: a copy of the complaint, a copy of the investigation report, and so on and so on. And then there's something that's brand new, or health and safety complaints in license exempt preschool programs. Currently, we don't have any, we don't operate any license exempt preschool programs. With the universal TK and the offing, this is probably something that will be a change coming forward, because we don't know what that marriage of, the morph from preschool to UTK might entail, but this is in here for the time being, and so that's all brand new. So those are the two overviews of the board policy, kind of broader stroke around facilitating outcomes versus just investigating reports and referring and resolving. Questions on those? The next big stripe under this is board policy in AR 6174, education for English learners, which is a big impact in Santa Maria Bonita. And obviously that's a big focus in our FPM. We last adopted a revised our policy in January 2020 before COVID. And I say this to Kristen, said this to her. I think that date is there. I'm not sure that Gamut captured the changes that we actually made, and I'll explain why as I go through it. So this is going through this process, right? Is to go back and examine all of our criteria. So this hasn't changed. The governing board intends to provide English learners with challenging curriculum instruction that develop proficiency in English as rapidly and effectively as possible. The new elements are these in highlights. English learners shall be provided differentiated English language development instruction which is targeted to their English proficiency level. Such instruction shall be based on sound instructional theory, be aligned with content standards, inquiry-based learning, and critical thinking skills, and be integrated across all subject areas. Right? So that's a nuance in the delivery of English learners. But they'll talk out specifically about students that have been in the U.S. less than 12 months or a different category. But by and large, it's really how do we make sure that kids are getting the good stuff every day in service of developing language acquisition. Here's an important piece. No middle or high school student who is an English learner shall be denied enrollment in any of the following education, or in any of the following courses in the core curriculum areas, right? Which is, I just met with the high school district last week to really make sure that we're doing due diligence to getting our English learners into the appropriate course placement out of the gate. And this is the reference. An English learner may be denied participation in such a course if a student has been enrolled less than 12 months. Can't be denied. It must be offered a full course load of courses specified in one above. Other courses that meet the A through G course requirements. And again, that's specific to high school, but the instructive part for us is knowing what that trajectory looks like as our kids are entering high school, that we've got them on the right path, that they are having that opportunity to enroll a full courses that meet A through G requirements. Again, there's this reference to the LCAP that has been in law. The addition is this part in italics. The superintendent designee shall encourage parent, guardian, community involvement in the development and evaluation of programs for English learners. And I'm so appreciative that we had the leadership of our DLAC providing input tonight. English learners shall be provided English language development instruction to target their English language proficiency and align with state content standards, curriculum framework. That has been in our policy. That's work that we're still working away on. I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago. We had all the ELD and instructional coaches in a session really talking about what does that need to look like? How do we better support our students in classrooms, but our teachers in the core classrooms to better serve those students? It's a great conversation. Staff qualification and training is something that's in addition to that policy. That's really what we're focusing on with that core group of of coaches. And this is the identification and assessment piece. This is why I think we probably didn't get this updated because the LPAC's been in place for a couple of years and we didn't have the LPAC referenced in the policy. So this is the addition of the criteria that's required for that identification and evaluation and assessment and progress. Talks about formative assessments may be utilized to analyze student performance. And again, this is just a broad policy piece. And whereas before it was about placement of learners, it's really about what's that language acquisition program, right? With the focus on language acquisition. So it's a nuance in terms of addressing the program design. So the district shall offer research-based language acquisition programs that are designed to ensure English acquisition as rapidly as possible. At a minimum, the district shall offer a structured English immersion program, which includes designated and integrated English language development, which has really been what we've been really trying to more effectively implement. In addition to English language acquisition programs, may be offered, not limited to, dual language immersion, right? Transitional or developmental programs for English learners, especially newcomers. And so this is the reference to LCAP development. That's and again, that's one of our big goals within the LCAP is ensuring the growth of our increase in reclassification. And then at the beginning of each school year, parents should be provided with what the design of those programs look like so that they're informed. And again, I'm so appreciative that our parent leaders are involved in developing those guidelines. And then the program evaluation requires, analyzing how are we doing? How are students doing? The new piece here that is in italics, 2 is under number 5. LPAC's in there somewhere. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's in the AR. This number 8, a comparison of data between the different language acquisition programs offered by the district. And again, it's where we have a bigger impact in, what are the variables that we need to consider. So that's the overview of the board policy. It got wordy, but it's in line with the roadmap, right? With the standards, really just kind of reinforcing those changes in language. And so this is the AR, and it really talks about a broader definition of English learners. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's where it begins. And I'm looking at 2 elementary experts right here. I'm talking out of my ear. I'm a secondary guy, but English, language acquisition is true for everybody in UTK or pre to 3, right? Everybody's acquiring language, right? Yep. That plasticity's there. Yeah. Yeah. And so this defines, again, those designated versus integrated, identification and assessment. This is where LPAC is specifically called out. We didn't have that in our previous policy. And so it talks about the administration of LPAC. after a student is identified, what the requirements are, notifications of parents. And this includes the pieces that are required to be in that parental notification. And it's primarily the same. It's just been reoriented around that refocusing of, concept around acquisition, language acquisition, and the program design. And then there's one last piece in here that talks about language acquisition programs themselves, and that the opportunity that goes back to if there are a number of parents at a site requesting the development of a program, that there's got to be a response at the site. And I believe that's new since we adopted our policy last. And then this is a criteria around reclassification, notification of parents around reclassification, monitoring progress. And then it's more specifically defines advisory programs. Before, that was just kind of a blanket around, if you look at this strike through, and it's specific to ELACs and DLACs. The superintendent shall establish a DLAC when you've got more than 50, when the district has more than 50 English language learners. And the reference to the LCAP advisory board, that the DLAC may also serve as the LCAP English Learner Advisory Committee. So that's that piece that we've been doing, but is now articulated specifically in the new administrative regulation. And then the last set is around parent involvement, is board policy 6020 and AR 6020. This initial statement is the same: parents, guardians, children's first most influential teachers. And this is more, and somebody mentioned this earlier about the early education programs, about engaging parents. Right? Parents shall be notified of their rights to be informed and participate in the availability of programs available to them. Specific references to LCAPs to include parent and guardian involvement. And, that's one of our pillars of our goal setting. And then there's specifics to Title I schools, which is all of our schools at this point, to really enhance that notion of family engagement, right? And so I appreciated Fred's comments earlier. We've got a pretty solid design going, right? Can it get better? Always. And so this is that focus on really ensuring that we're maximizing that opportunity to support parents. And it really talks about some of the benchmarks to be utilized in that. And then there's a reference to non-Title I schools, which is not applicable to ours at the moment. But, at some point, as we develop other innovative designs, it may be applicable. And so the administrative regulation, again, is just the articulation of those policy elements around parent involvement. So it's strategies. So here are some things, and we adopted this last in January 2018. It hasn't changed much. It's just really, I think a lot of those reference again.
For some reason, it's getting choppy for me again.
Yeah, I hear it kind of echoing too.
I'm not sure if folks can hear you online for the last.
Is it okay? And if there's still anybody on this online at this point, they probably don't want to hear me anyway.
There's like 6.
What's that?
There's like 6.
And is that you, Matt, or you, Matt and Bijou, 3 of them? Oh, okay. And so this is. So you see all this strike through, all those elements have been taken and reoriented around alignment, right? And it's right in line with what the emphasis of LCAP has been. Don't do your LCAP separate from your EL master plan, separate from your Title I. It's really how do we align and coordinate around those common goals, around the feedback. right? About collecting information from parents to make sure that we're not just putting everything in one bucket, but we're spreading it out to spread the wealth. And so as you read through, you'll see it's a little more fluid in terms of leveraging those different elements to have a much broader impact rather than it's, parent involvement for the sake of parent involvement, which I can say as a principal, we used to do the count. How many people showed up to the book fair, right? Rather than what did we see? What were they buying? Our kids reading those books, right? Is it having an impact? It was just, it was kind of, we were weighing things instead of evaluating. And that's really the design of this piece. These school level policies for Title I schools haven't changed much. The whole parent compact concept is still in play. But it talks here about regular two-way meaningful communication. Again, that's in alignment around that's, our educational partners, right? They're no longer stakeholders. Remember that last LCAP meeting? That's kind of the new terminology that's coming out. We got to think different to do different. And so these are our educational partners, not just stakeholders that we take from or we, right, use at our convenience, but really partnering around that work. And so it lays out some of those pieces to really build that partnership through this last part and around what the plans need to include. And again, that's really the re-articulation of the part that's struck through up above. And then there's district for strategies for non-Title I schools, which as you find as you read through it, aren't remarkably different. Because parents of kids are parents of kids, right? And we all want the same outcome. So it's really nice that symmetry is there, right? So it's kind of the broad strokes around the AR that mirror that coherence that's in the parent engagement piece, parent involvement. Okay, so I will shoot you that markup so that you get it, because I know when you saw those attachments, you did that comparison, right? But to be able to look at the combination of the two.
There was some good discussion around the last ARBP with parent involvement from Bakersfield City at the CSBA meeting and their involvement with parents. And I know we've done a lot of outreach and trying to get the parents in different classes and involvement, and that was a lot of their big push in reaching out, was having that parent around parent instruction. And I actually had I talked to a couple teachers that had some other really good ideas around engaging parents on their respective campuses at the beginning of the year. And one of them was around the technology piece and having folks there to instruct them through, and I don't know if we already do this, but the technology piece with Chromebooks or what have you, so that they have an understanding about what their child is going through in a kind of formative environment where it's not put upon them at their home, and their child's not explaining it to them or one of their other children, and because parents and adults tend to be more patient with one another than kids with the adults.
Yeah,
there were a lot of there's a lot of, I think we do a lot, and I really appreciated what Dr. Van Leeuwen said, but there were some ideas, I think, about some things that we can do. And even one of them was as simple as communication at the front office. And I call it the Trader Joe's syndrome. When Trader Joe's first went back to New York, they were kind of put off by it because people were so friendly, they thought they were fake. And you can't help me. I don't want your help. I'll find it myself. So there was that kind of deal. So I think, just that interface, some of the parents even said it when I was listening to Bakersfield City, is that first interface is so important. So, there's just simple things like that we can do with outreach and just kind of coalescing around what that first contact is like and making it meaningful and drawing them in. And so that the one that, like I said, that the tech night or whatever it might be, I think there's stuff we can still do. And I know that maybe not necessarily obviously reflected in a BP or an AR, but it gave me, when we're talking about it, I think.
And you'll see there's a specific reference in there also to, like many of our schools have done through PK, access some outside resources. So your point, John, we know what we know, right? Let's find out what somebody else knows. Because how far is Bakersfield from here? 105 miles,
Yeah.
right? And there's some good, not only that piece, what does that spawn, right? What does that engagement with parents create so that we can start thinking about the impacts of those things in other areas as well?
That was speaking to that was she was a uninvolved parent who'd had not great experiences with the schools and was frustrated. Then somebody encouraged her to become involved, and then she went through the parenting classes and was given support and information. Right, a lot of it's about communication and information, and now she's a board member. She went from being a kind of disenfranchised parent to an involved parent on successive different levels to the point where now she's on their board. So I think we've got the parents who put it in, but we can still get more.
Well, and again, we've got some good things in place, but it's your point. How do we make it stronger? And I think Linda and Vito, didn't we go over to the PK graduation at JPO a couple years ago? And the parents there that were talking about, to your point, John, I don't know that I ever would have gone and asked the school for help, but I'll ask Linda's my next door neighbor, and because she knows how to help me, now we can help each other. It's just, it's that, it's that
ripples.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
Mr. Hollingshead, can you hear me?
Yeah, I had one hearing.
I think I attended the same one that you did, and there was also an additional one that was offered at CSBA that I was able to get a lot of really good ideas, because there's nothing new in education. We steal, right? When we hear really good ideas. And we've got some things in place where, again, to Mr. Ontiveros's point, to expand our reach to other organizations that we can reach out to, because our bandwidth is only so much, but we have community partners that are willing to do more things with our families. And so really focusing on that family engagement, and you'll be hearing that more and more as we continue bringing things to you, especially when you start really hearing about our multi-year plan moving forward. That family engagement piece being more than just feedback, but actual engagement and education. And what does that all look like? Just know that I know I got some great ideas from CSBA too, like a lot. And we have some other things that we're really working on that we know we're doing good work right now. You heard that earlier. Tammy and team are doing phenomenal work, and the sites, right? It's not just Tammy, it's our teachers, it's our leaders, it's everyone. But we also know you can always do better, right? And that there's some other things we could be doing. So it was a good moment just to say, we know that, and we're really going to be working on that, because there's just more to do there. So I really appreciate your comments. So thank you.
No problem. And I do have, actually, I went to the Cal Together presentation of the EL toolkit, the update from the roadmap. So I do have a hard copy of that, and anybody who wants one, you can, I think, email the women involved with that from, I believe it's Loyola Marymount, and I think they'll send you a hard copy if you were a CSBA attendee. But that stuff was really encouraging, as well as was the LTEL stuff. So hopefully we can all chat about that stuff at some point.
And we had our first meeting last week with our EL work team to update our master plan, which is based on the roadmap, right? It's based on the roadmap, and it's based on the work that we're currently doing in our district and the work that we need to do. And so that, of course, was extended to board members, to community members, to every teacher. It was anyone could join. And that our first meeting was last week. So the team did a great job, and that work's starting as well.
Melissa, do we have, like, for example, I know in the past, Mr. Mueller had talked about we had used some curriculum and advisement from Kate Cancella, but do we have anybody that either we consult like SEAL or like Cal Together, where we run something past them and say, hey, what does this look like in comparison to where the roadmap's going and the pathways that we're trying to establish might be?
There's a couple answers to that. It's probably more layered than what I'll give you tonight. But I'll tell you this one piece. We have a really strong partnership with CABE that's specifically side by side with the team at Jimenez and the teaching and learning team. And so we're working really closely with them around just what you just said is what does the curriculum look like in a DLI program, and what does that attrition look like from grade level to grade level when you're changing those percentages, right? And so we do have a really strong partnership with CABE, and I do know that other schools, just talked to another principal the other day, they're going to be bringing CABE to them, right? And then we're also working on that seal of biliteracy that we're working on in our district, so that they're also helping us partner with that. And then of course, we also have our state adopted curriculum that those things are already built in, that have already been vetted by the West Eds out there, right? That put our English learners first and all those things. But that's a really, just that for one, that partnership with CABE is really fantastic. And I can see that growing down the line as well.
Thank you.
Melissa, how are they bringing CABE to them?
Great question. So in this world, for many reasons, it's hard for us to go to conferences, right? That one, there's only virtual conferences in a lot of cases. If they're in person, we don't have subs. And so in those days of, like, we don't have the days of being able to send folks to conferences during the week. We could just, get some subs. It'd be easy. But we also don't want folks to lose out on the learning. And so what companies and partners and consulting firms and all those things, they've really learned that they can do a lot virtually, right? Like we've learned. And so CABE is one that instead of us going to a conference there, they would come to us either virtually or in person. And then that's it actually so much better than a conference, because now the whole staff can be a part of it. Where a conference before it might have only been 5 or 6 teachers, now it can be an entire group of folks, and then they're able to do direct consulting. So before you'd go to a conference and you were just one of many, right? Like, you're just one of many, but when you bring them here, it's all about you. It's all about your school. It's all about your context. It's all about what we're doing here with our kids, with our needs. And that really is, it's really been a benefit of kind of this new way of doing business. So we've been working on bringing people here. Like, we don't go to those big, I'll give an example, Doug Fisher conferences. Doug comes to us, right? He comes to us virtually, and teachers are trained that way, or folks in the system are trained that way. So we've really been trying to leverage that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, with that, I'll make the recommendation that the Board of Education acknowledge receipt of the first reading, board policies, and return the item for further discussion and approval at the next regular board meeting as presented.
Amen.
And with that, does anybody have anything they'd like to report out? Go ahead, Mr. Valencia.
I just wanted to give a little bit of an update of some of the CSBA conference. This is my first time being able to go to one in person, and the connections that I was able to make with many of the CSBA leadership and board members from across the state was extremely helpful in terms of my own learning as the newest board member here for Bonita. One of the highlights that I wanted to share with everyone was the youth panel that they hosted. It was our California youth reminding us essentially of the important role that education plays in eliminating racism within ourselves, within our institutions, and society at large. The high school students and college students emphasized the importance of having a say in their educational experience, the importance of mental health, and of having a caring adult as allies in their development. Another one of the many workshops, wonderful workshops that they had, was the ethnic studies workshops, where they taught us about the high school requirement for ethnic studies, which I believe takes place in the year 2029. However, here locally in the Santa Maria Joint Union High School District that I work for, that's already a requirement starting with this year's freshmen. So this is a great opportunity for us as a district to reflect on how are we preparing our students, right, with multi-ethnic curriculum, so that by the time they get to the high school level, they're ready to go with the requirement, which is already taking place in our local high school districts. And another part that caught my attention from the workshops was they had one on equity. And these are always fabulous workshops. And one of the things that they stressed was the importance of a district having an equity statement. So what's awesome about our school district is we already have a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, but we don't, as of yet, to my knowledge that I'm aware of, have an equity statement, which highlights, right, what is our commitment, right, to equity, and talking about the needs of our students, giving them what they need when they need it, and making sure that we are disrupting inequality wherever we find it in our school system. Another highlight of the workshop, various workshops, was the Lighthouse Study, which is something that I was exposed to when I did the Masters in Governance training as a new board member. And they talked about how, what do we spend our time discussing as school boards and on our agendas? And they talked about how best practices is often a school board that emphasizes at least 60% of their time spent on student learning. So they emphasize the importance of not getting caught up in the minutia of things, but making sure that at least 60% of our conversations and our board time is spent on student learning, right? On their academic achievement, as well as, focusing on the whole child. So I thought that was really a really key point. And then lastly, I just want to say thank you to the staff. We made it for, this is another year, right, that we're about to be closing, not necessarily the school year, but the end of a year, of a calendar year. And I want to thank every employee in our district. Everyone has an important role to play to ensure that our kids get a world-class education. Our youth deserve this, and our staff deserve good rest for a job well done. So I just want to wish all of you happy holidays. Thank you.
Unmuted. I will try to synopsize. I brought up some of the things in the latest bit of discussion, and I echo Mr. Valencia's sentiments about some of the other sessions that we attended together. I would ask in the context, or suggest in the context of that Lighthouse study, that COVID's going to be part of who we are. We've spent a lot of time on that and business because it's been essential. But one of the things that we've kind of got away from, that I'd like to see in some of our meetings in the upcoming year, are reports out from Ms. Dutra and the departments on where they're at in some of the different curricular presentations or curriculums, I should say, or where we're at with EL, or those kinds of things. Reports we've typically received in the past, or updates, but we really haven't gotten. And so we can kind of get back to talking about our kids and where they are with some of those things. Because I think I really agree with Mr. Valencia. I think those things are the stuff we should be hearing about and spending time on, but also so we can celebrate what our teachers are doing in the classroom and hear about their collaboration with one another, and they can celebrate one another. I'm sure you guys remember when Rice has come and presented to us about some of the innovative things they were doing at the time with PE and whatnot. It could be site-based too, but just those kinds of presentations I think are celebratory as well as informative. I had a chance to go, just super briefly, I had a chance to go with my wife and tour the CTE independent of the opening ceremonies with Dr. Robinson last week, and classes were in session, and we also went into the classrooms where they weren't, or they will be someday. And again, the facility is impressive. What's more inspiring is the relationship that those teachers have with their students, and seeing those students being really invested and inspired to work and to learn, and how those things are cross-curricular, right? I mean, it's really about cross-curriculum instruction and integration there in large part. But what I would also say is that there was the tale of one young man that Mr. Robinson, Dr. Robinson told us about, where he was on independent study, the student, and he asked that he please be allowed to continue to attend their building class there at the CTE. That was why he wanted to come to school. So there was an inspiration there and a motivation to do those other things with his home independent study as an incentive to continue to be able to do that. So I think, that it was a really inspiring day. The other reason I wanted to mention is because he said that Sarah Cameron, Ms. Cameron is doing a lot of work to form pathways for us to articulate with that facility. So that was really encouraging too. So thank you to her. And again, as Mr. Valencia said, I think we want to thank the staff, everybody collectively, for their support of one another and the students. That's I think the backbone of what we're doing. So I appreciate those. I appreciate all the staff, and hopefully they can have a happy holiday.
I just wanted to mention one thing. I think I mentioned this. I was talking to Ricardo last night. I met last week with Antonio Garcia at the high school district and Gloria Soto and Angel Lopez from the Future Leaders of America. They had done right before Veterans Day, had a congregation around A through G rates at the high school district with the high school staff. And I called Antonio and I said, we have to be a part of that conversation, right? It's everything we were just talking about, alignment. It's everything you're talking about, John, about those articulated pathways. And so I sat down with Gloria and Angel and just basically saying, these are all the things we have in place. And they're like, we had no idea, right? So again, there's always work to be done, right? But she said, I'm so supportive of that work. And so we talked about how can we get some of those future leaders, we talk about going to college all the time. We got college banners all over our schools. What about high school? That's kind of like the key, the keystone to getting there. And so really making sure that we're maximizing that. And so, I'm glad you mentioned Sarah, John, because guess who I put Gloria and Angel in contact with, right? Because she's really building that college career readiness profile, right? She's the gatekeeper of all that collective work that's being done, right? That we're really trying to shift. I appreciated Carrie Milhorn's comments tonight about it's good that we're shifting those junior high school designs to give kids more access. But then on the other side, there's that balance. Stacy's comments about, but it's less minutes in math. Well, yeah, but it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, right? So all the comments, Ricardo, that you were making about those workshops that you went to, caring adult, key to success, right? Regardless of the circumstance, whether it's in your job, your family, your neighborhood, you got a caring adult, something can happen, right? Something magical can happen. So there really are a lot of great pieces in place. Just there's still, you can say this about Santa Maria Valley, there's still fog, right? We're not necessarily seeing what's on the other side. But if we keep at it, the pieces are there and they'll start knitting together. So I appreciate everyone on the screen, everyone here, especially during this crazy time of COVID, of really not, when the next pandemic comes, we'll know how to respond more effectively, right? but to really make sure that the right things are the right things, regardless of the timing, we got to make sure that we're keeping that best face forward on all these things, and leveraging each other's expertise. So I echo the comments about, it's here we're at holiday break already, Christmas break already. Goes better just like that. Enjoy, bless that time with family, because the train might be pulling into the station for a few minutes. I might be stepping up, but it's moving, right? It's going to get moving again. So I appreciate all the time. I appreciate all the comments tonight, but I really appreciate the work that this whole team will continue to be engaged in, because our kids depend on it. So that's all I got. Thanks, Matt, Melissa, Bijou. Rebecca checked off. I kept texting her and tell her to get off. So Brian King, if I don't see him on there anymore, Maggie, Kristen, thank you.
Love you,
Merry
Luke. We'll
Christmas.
miss you.
Thank you, Luke.
The same.
Thank you, Luke.
And
Have
with
fun
that,
on your trip.
and with that, we wish you and your families a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year until next year. And get rest. Meeting adjourned.